Sumerian civilization. The land of Sumer, situated between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, is widely recognized as one of the first cradles of civilization. This region, known as Mesopotamia, saw the emergence of complex urban centers around 5000 BCE. These cities, including Uruk, Ur, and Eridu, were among the earliest known examples of organized human settlement, featuring administrative institutions, religious centers, and marketplaces. The development of writing was among the Sumerians' most enduring contributions. Their script, known as cuneiform, consisted of wedge-shaped impressions made on clay tablets. These inscriptions recorded economic transactions, legal codes, and literary texts, allowing for the transmission of knowledge across generations. The Sumerians established sophisticated systems of irrigation, enabling agricultural productivity that supported dense populations. The controlled redirection of river water allowed for the cultivation of staple crops such as barley and wheat. These advancements in agricultural management facilitated not only subsistence but also the accumulation of surplus resources, which played a fundamental role in the development of trade and social stratification. The city-state model characterized Sumerian political organization. Each city functioned as an independent entity governed by a ruler, often referred to as a lugal or ensi. These figures held authority over both secular and religious matters, with governance closely linked to temple institutions. The construction of ziggurats, stepped temple structures, reflected the centrality of religious practices within Sumerian society. These monumental edifices served as focal points for communal activities, reinforcing the city's socio-political structure. Beyond administrative and economic achievements, the Sumerians made significant contributions to mathematics and astronomy. They developed a base 60 numerical system, a framework still evident in modern timekeeping. Their observations of celestial bodies informed early calendars, which regulated agricultural cycles and religious festivals. The recording of astronomical phenomena represents one of the earliest instances of systematic scientific inquiry. Legal codes were another defining feature of Sumerian society. The earliest known legal document, the Code of Ur-Nammu, predates the more famous Code of Hammurabi. These legal texts delineated property rights, contractual obligations, and penalties for transgressions, illustrating the structured nature of Sumerian governance. Sumerian literature, exemplified by the Epic of Gilgamesh, provides insight into early conceptions of kingship, mortality, and human ambition. The narrative follows Gilgamesh, a semi-divine ruler of Uruk, on his quest for eternal life. This literary work, among the oldest surviving epics, presents themes of existential reflection and the limitations of human power. The preservation of such texts underscores the Sumerians' role in shaping literary traditions that influenced subsequent civilizations. Sumerian religious beliefs were polytheistic, with deities governing aspects of nature and society. Anu, the sky god, Enlil, the god of air and storms, and Inanna, the goddess of love and war, were central figures in their pantheon. Ritual practices included offerings and hymns performed within temple complexes, reinforcing the reciprocal relationship between divine forces and human endeavors. Over time, environmental changes, resource depletion, and external incursions contributed to the decline of Sumerian city-states. By approximately 2000 BCE, their political dominance had waned, with Akkadian and later Babylonian civilizations absorbing many aspects of Sumerian culture. Nevertheless, their contributions to writing, governance, and scientific thought persisted, forming the intellectual bedrock for subsequent societies. As we conclude our exploration of Sumer, allow the steady rhythms of history to guide you into a state of rest. The distant echoes of scribes inscribing clay tablets, the gentle murmur of irrigation channels, and the hushed reverence of temple rituals all blend into a tranquil soundscape. The past remains a quiet presence, offering a refuge of contemplation and intellectual calm. Nestled along the fertile banks of the Nile River, ancient Egypt emerged as one of history's most remarkable civilizations, flourishing for over 3 millennia from approximately 3100 BCE until its annexation by the Roman Empire in 30 BCE. This enduring society bequeathed a wealth of cultural, architectural, and intellectual achievements that continue to captivate the imagination. The Nile River served as the lifeblood of ancient Egypt, its predictable annual inundations depositing nutrient-rich silt along the floodplain, thereby facilitating robust agricultural practices. This natural abundance allowed the Egyptians to cultivate staple crops such as wheat and barley, sustaining a burgeoning population and fostering societal stability. The surrounding deserts acted as natural fortifications, shielding the civilization from external threats and engendering a sense of continuity and security. At the heart of Egyptian society stood the pharaoh, a sovereign endowed with both political authority and divine status. Revered as the intermediary between the gods and the people, the pharaoh bore the responsibility of upholding Ma'at, the cosmic order encompassing truth, balance, and justice. This theocratic monarchy centralized power, enabling the orchestration of grand state projects and the maintenance of societal harmony. The dynastic structure of Egypt's rule spanned multiple eras, including the Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, and New Kingdom, each marked by periods of prosperity and transformation. The unification of Upper and Lower Egypt by Narmer, also known as Men's, around 3100 BCE heralded the inception of centralized governance, laying the foundation for an enduring civilization. The architectural endeavors of ancient Egypt are among its most enduring legacies. The Old Kingdom, c. 2686 to 2181 BCE, witnessed the construction of the iconic pyramids, serving as royal tombs designed to ensure the pharaoh's ascension to the afterlife. The step pyramid of Dosar at Saqqara, conceived by the architect Imhotep, represents the earliest colossal stone building, marking a significant evolution in monumental architecture. The apogee of pyramid construction is epitomized by the Great Pyramid of Giza, erected for Pharaoh Khufu. This monumental edifice, comprising approximately 3 million stone blocks, stands as a testament to the Egyptians' engineering prowess and organizational acumen. The precise alignment and construction techniques employed continue to inspire awe and scholarly inquiry. Beyond pyramids, the Egyptians constructed elaborate temples dedicated to their pantheon of deities. The Temple of Karnak, developed over centuries, functioned as a central place of worship and a hub for religious ceremonies. Its vast hyper-style hall, adorned with towering columns inscribed with hieroglyphs, exemplifies the grandeur and spiritual significance of these sacred spaces. The development of hieroglyphic writing around 3200 BCE marked a pivotal advancement in Egyptian civilization. This complex system, comprising over 700 symbols representing sounds, words, and concepts, was employed primarily for religious texts, royal decrees, and monumental inscriptions. The Rosetta Stone, discovered in 1799, later provided the key to deciphering this enigmatic script, enabling modern scholars to access the vast literary and administrative records of ancient Egypt. Scribes played a crucial role in maintaining bureaucratic efficiency, recording tax collections, census data, and legal proceedings. Their training was rigorous, and their position in society was esteemed, as literacy conferred significant advantages within the administrative hierarchy. Ancient Egyptian religion was deeply interwoven with daily life, characterized by a rich pantheon of gods and complex rituals. Deities such as Ra, the sun god, Osiris, the ruler of the underworld, and Isis, the goddess of magic and motherhood, held central roles in spiritual and civic practices. Temples served not only as places of worship, but also as centers of economic and political activity. The concept of the afterlife was integral to Egyptian belief systems. The practice of mummification, developed to preserve the body for its journey beyond death, was performed with meticulous care. The Book of the Dead, a collection of funerary texts, provided guidance for the deceased to navigate the perils of the underworld and achieve eternal life. Tombs were filled with provisions, amulets, and sharp teeth figurines, all intended to assist the departed in the afterlife. Egyptian scholars made significant strides in various fields, including medicine, astronomy, and mathematics. Their understanding of human anatomy, gleaned from the practice of mummification, enabled the development of medical treatments for ailments ranging from infections to fractures. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, an ancient medical text, details surgical procedures and anatomical observations, reflecting an advanced comprehension of bodily functions. In the realm of mathematics, Egyptian engineers and architects utilized precise measurements to construct their monumental edifices. Their knowledge of geometry facilitated land surveying, essential for redistributing agricultural plots following the annual Nile floods. The division of time into 24-hour days and the creation of a 365-day calendar further underscore their scientific ingenuity. Egypt's economy was predominantly agrarian, with the Nile providing a steady food supply. However, trade also played a crucial role in sustaining the civilization. The exchange of goods with neighboring regions, including Nubia, the Levant, and Mesopotamia, introduced valuable resources such as gold, incense, and precious stones. Daily life in Egypt varied according to social class. While laborers and farmers engaged in agricultural and construction work, artisans and craftsmen produced exquisite jewelry, pottery, and textiles. Women held relatively high status compared to other ancient societies, possessing the legal right to own property, initiate divorce, and engage in business transactions. Despite its longevity, ancient Egypt faced periods of decline due to internal strife, foreign invasions, and economic challenges. The New Kingdom, c. 1550 to 1070 BCE, witnessed the height of Egyptian power, but subsequent dynastic struggles weakened centralized control. The conquest of Egypt by Alexander the Great in 332 BCE, and its later incorporation into the Roman Empire in 30 BCE marked the end of pharaonic rule. Yet, the legacy of ancient Egypt endures. Its monumental achievements, philosophical inquiries, and artistic expressions continue to influence contemporary culture and scholarship. As we conclude this section of our journey, allow the rhythms of history to guide you into rest. The gentle lapping of the Nile, the whispers of scribes in dimly lit chambers, and the distant echoes of temple hymns all merge into a tranquil soundscape. Let the past envelop you in its quiet embrace, offering a sanctuary of contemplation and serenity. Nestled within the fertile plains of the Indus River and its tributaries, the Indus Valley Civilization, also known as the Harappan Civilization, flourished between approximately 3300 BCE and 1300 BCE. It remains one of the most intriguing and advanced ancient cultures, distinguished by its meticulous urban planning, sophisticated drainage systems, and an undeciphered script that continues to puzzle scholars. Spanning a vast area, the Indus Valley Civilization covered parts of present-day India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. The two most prominent urban centers, Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, stood as testaments to an organized society adept at managing its natural resources. The region's rivers provided sustenance, allowing agriculture to thrive, while the surrounding mountains and deserts served as natural barrows, offering a degree of protection against invasions. Monsoon cycles heavily influenced the civilization's development. The fertile floodplains enabled the cultivation of crops such as wheat, barley, and lentils. However, the unpredictable nature of these seasonal floods may have also contributed to the civilization's eventual decline. Among the most remarkable aspects of the Indus Valley Civilization was its emphasis on urban organization. Unlike contemporary civilizations, which often grew organically, the Indus people meticulously designed their cities with a structured grid system. Streets ran perpendicular to each other, forming well-planned blocks that accommodated residential, commercial, and public structures. The cities were characterized by impressive baked brick buildings, with many structures featuring multiple stories. Homes were equipped with wells, private bathing areas, and even rudimentary indoor plumbing, a concept well ahead of its time. This indicates a society that valued hygiene and systematic governance. Public spaces included large granaries, which suggest an advanced system of food storage and distribution, as well as central marketplaces, where trade and economic activities flourished. The The presence of large assembly halls hints at a structured political system, though the exact nature of governance remains speculative. One of the most outstanding achievements of the Indus Valley civilization was its drainage and sanitation infrastructure. Unlike many ancient societies, where waste management was rudimentary, the Harappans engineered a complex underground drainage network. Each house had access to covered drains, which connected to a larger sewage system that carried waste away from residential areas. Public baths, such as the Great Bath of Mohenjo-Daro, further exemplified the civilization's emphasis on cleanliness. These baths were constructed with watertight bricks and sophisticated water management systems, suggesting that ritual purification or communal bathing played a significant role in their culture. Economic stability was a cornerstone of the Indus Valley civilization. Archaeological evidence suggests a thriving trade network, both within the civilization and with distant lands such as Mesopotamia and Central Asia. Harappan merchants exchanged goods such as cotton textiles, pottery, beads, and semi-precious stones for metals, wool, and luxury items. Standardized weights and measures, often made from chert, indicate a highly regulated economic system. The uniformity of bricks and tools across cities also suggests centralized control over production standards, reinforcing the notion of a well-organized society. One of the most enigmatic aspects of this civilization is its writing system. The Indus script, composed of intricate symbols, has yet to be deciphered despite extensive scholarly efforts. Thousands of inscribed seals and pottery fragments have been discovered, depicting a mixture of pictographic and abstract symbols. Unlike cuneiform or hieroglyphics, which scholars have successfully decoded, the absence of bilingual inscriptions, akin to the Rosetta Stone, has made interpreting the Indus script particularly challenging. If deciphered, it could provide invaluable insights into the civilization's governance, beliefs, and daily life. The religious beliefs of the Indus Valley people remain speculative, but archaeological findings provide some intriguing clues. Various terracotta figurines suggest the worship of mother goddesses, indicating a reverence for fertility and nature. Additionally, depictions of a seated figure surrounded by animals, often referred to as a proto-Shiva or yogic deity, hint at early forms of Hindu spiritual traditions. Unlike contemporary civilizations that built grand temples or ziggurats, the Indus Valley civilization lacks monumental religious structures. This absence raises questions about whether religious practices were more localized or decentralized in nature. Social hierarchy remains another subject of debate. Unlike the rigid class system seen in Mesopotamia or Egypt, there is little evidence of extreme disparities in wealth or power. The uniformity in residential structures suggests a relatively egalitarian society, though a ruling elite or priestly class may have existed. Artistic expression flourished in the Indus Valley, with artisans producing intricate jewelry, pottery, and sculptures. The famed dancing girl figurine, cast in bronze, exemplifies the civilization's mastery of metalwork and artistic detail. Seals bearing animal motifs and inscriptions serve as evidence of both artistic creativity and commercial transactions. Some seals depict unicorn-like creatures, suggesting a rich mythological tradition that remains lost to history. Daily life was likely centered around agriculture, trade, and communal activities. The presence of board games and dice suggests that recreation played a role in Harappan society, further emphasizing its sophistication and cultural depth. The decline of the Indus Valley civilization remains an enduring mystery. Several theories have been proposed, ranging from environmental changes to socio-political upheaval. Shifts in monsoon patterns could have led to agricultural decline, while natural disasters such as earthquakes or flooding may have destabilized urban centers. Another possibility is the gradual migration or assimilation of the Harappan people into surrounding cultures. Some scholars suggest that invasions by Indo-Aryan groups played a role, though evidence for large-scale conflict remains inconclusive. Regardless of its ultimate fate, the legacy of the Indus Valley civilization persists. Its advanced urban planning, emphasis on sanitation, and intricate craftsmanship laid the groundwork for future cultures in the Indian subcontinent. As we conclude this segment of our journey, Imagine the bustling markets of Mohenjo-Daro, the rhythmic chiseling of artisans crafting seals, and the tranquil waters flowing through meticulously planned streets. Let the echoes of an ancient world guide you into peaceful rest, enveloping you in the quiet hum of history. Amidst the shimmering waters of the Mediterranean, on the sunlit island of Crete, flourished the Minoan civilization, an enigmatic and sophisticated culture that thrived between approximately 3000 BCE and 1100 BCE. Often considered Europe's first advanced civilization, the Minoans built remarkable palatial complexes, established extensive maritime trade networks, and cultivated a society deeply connected to art, mythology, and technological innovation. Crete's strategic location in the Aegean Sea allowed the Minoans to become masterful seafarers, connecting them with neighboring civilizations in Egypt, the Near East, and mainland Greece. The island's natural resources, including fertile plains and abundant timber, facilitated agricultural prosperity and shipbuilding, which became central to their economic success. Unlike many contemporary civilizations that prioritized military expansion, the Minoans focused on commerce, cultural development, and the construction of elaborate architectural wonders. One of the most remarkable hallmarks of Minoan civilization is its architectural ingenuity, exemplified by the grand palaces that dotted the Cretan landscape. The most famous of these is the Palace of Knossos, a sprawling multi-storied complex covering over 150,000 square feet. Knossos, believed to be the political and ceremonial center of Minoan society, was unlike any other structure of its time. The palace boasted a labyrinthine design, expansive courtyards, intricate frescoes, and an advanced plumbing system that included terracotta pipes for water distribution. This sophisticated infrastructure suggests a society that valued comfort, organization, and aesthetic refinement. Beyond Knossos, other palatial centers such as Phaistos, Marlia, and Zakros served as regional hubs of governance and economic activity. These complexes were not heavily fortified, further supporting the notion that the Minoans relied more on diplomacy and naval supremacy than on military conquest for their security. The Minoans developed a thriving economy based on maritime commerce. Crete's position in the Mediterranean allowed them to establish extensive trade networks with Egypt, Anatolia, the Levant, and the Cycladic Islands. They exported goods such as olive oil, wine, pottery, and textiles, while importing luxury items like gold, ivory, and precious stones. Archaeological evidence suggests that Minoan merchants played a crucial role in the distribution of tin, an essential component in the production of bronze. This trade facilitated technological advancements across the region, cementing Crete's influence in the wider Bronze Age economy. Minoan art is renowned for its vibrancy, dynamism, and connection to nature. Unlike the rigid, hierarchical depictions found in Egyptian or Mesopotamian art, Minoan frescoes exude a sense of movement and liveliness. One of the most famous examples is the dolphin fresco from Knossos, which captures the fluidity of marine life, reflecting the civilization's intimate relationship with the sea. Another iconic artwork is the bull leaping fresco, which portrays young acrobats vaulting over the backs of charging bulls, a practice believed to have held ritualistic or ceremonial significance. The prevalence of bull imagery throughout Minoan culture suggests a deep reverence for the animal, potentially linked to myths that later influenced Greek mythology, such as the legend of the Minotaur. Pottery was another highly developed craft, with Minoan artisans producing elegant Kamar's ware, delicate, polychrome ceramics decorated with swirling motifs and floral patterns. This artistic excellence extended to jewelry making, where goldsmiths fashioned intricate diadems, necklaces, and rings that showcased remarkable technical skill. Unlike many contemporary civilizations dominated by patriarchal structures, the Minoans appear to have granted women significant status in both religious and social spheres. Artistic depictions frequently feature priestesses engaging in sacred rituals, suggesting that women played a crucial role in Minoan spiritual life. The civilization's religious practices were centered around goddess worship, with figures such as the snake goddess, a deity associated with fertility, protection, and the renewal of life, holding prominent positions in their belief system. Ritual sites, including peak sanctuaries and sacred caves, was scattered across Crete, indicating that religious activities were deeply embedded in both urban and rural settings. The Minoans developed one of the earliest writing systems in the Aegean, known as Linear A. Though it remains undeciphered, it is believed to have been used primarily for administrative and economic purposes. Tablets inscribed with Linear A have been discovered in palace archives, indicating a bureaucratic system that managed trade, taxation, and resource distribution. The later adaptation of Linear B, which was deciphered in the 20th century, suggests a transition from Minoan to Mycenaean dominance, as Linear B was used to record an early form of Greek. However, the inability to fully understand Linear A leaves many aspects of Minoan governance and culture shrouded in mystery. The gradual decline of Minoan civilization has long been debated among historians and archaeologists. One prevailing theory attributes their downfall to the catastrophic eruption of the Thera volcano, modern-day Santorini, around 1600 BCE. This event likely triggered massive tsunamis and widespread devastation across Crete, weakening the Minoan stronghold. In the aftermath, the Mycenaeans, an emerging Greek civilization from the mainland, gradually exerted their influence over Crete. By approximately 1100 BCE, the distinct Minoan culture had faded, absorbed into the expanding Mycenaean world. Though their civilization ultimately waned, the Minoans left an indelible mark on the Mediterranean world. Their advancements in architecture, art, trade, and religious thought influenced later Greek societies, particularly the Mycenaeans and, subsequently, classical Greece. The myth of the Minotaur, the legendary labyrinth, and echoes of Minoan religious symbolism can be traced in Greek mythology, underscoring the civilization's enduring cultural resonance. As we conclude our exploration of the Minoan civilization, envision the rhythmic lapping of the Aegean waves against the harbors of Knossos, the gentle flickering of torchlight illuminating fresco-adorned halls, and the distant echoes of ceremonial chants. Allow these impressions of a once thriving world to carry you into deep and restful slumber. Rising from the shadows of the Minoan civilization, the Mycenaean civilization marked the beginning of what we recognize today as ancient Greek culture. From approximately 1900 BCE to 1100 BCE, the Mycenaeans established a vibrant, yet tumultuous society known for its fortified cities, heroic legends, and monumental architecture. Though their civilization was relatively short-lived, their impact on later Greek culture, including the legendary epics of Homer, has been profound and enduring. The Mycenaean civilization emerged on the Greek mainland, flourishing in the rugged hills and valleys of the Peloponnese and the surrounding Aegean islands. Unlike the relatively peaceful Minoans, the Mycenaeans were characterized by a warrior-like society, one that valued defense and strategic control over their territory. The Mycenaeans established powerful city-states, the most famous of which was Mycenae itself, a city whose very name has come to symbolize the civilization as a whole. The Mycenaean cities were often heavily fortified, surrounded by massive walls constructed of Cyclopean stone blocks. The term Cyclopean derives from Greek mythology, referring to the giant Cyclopes who was said to have built these walls. These fortifications were not only defensive in nature, but also symbolized the power and authority of the rulers who resided within. The citadel of Mycenae, perched high on a hill overlooking the surrounding plains, is a prime example of the civilization's architectural prowess. The most famous feature of the citadel is the Lion Gate, a monumental entrance decorated with two carved lion figures. The Lion Gate is a symbol of Mycenaean strength and royal power, and it remains one of the most iconic architectural elements from the ancient Greek world. Within the citadel, the Megaron, or Great Hall, was the central building of Mycenaean palaces. This large, rectangular room featured a central hearth and was the setting for feasts, meetings, and royal gatherings. It is believed that the Mycenaean kings resided in these palatial structures, ruling over their domains with a combination of military might and political influence. The Mycenaeans were not just warriors, they were also skilled traders. They established a network of trade routes that stretched across the Aegean and beyond, reaching as far as Egypt, Anatolia, and the Near East. The Mycenaeans exported goods such as pottery, textiles, and olive oil, while they imported luxury items like gold, ivory, and gemstones. This trade network facilitated the exchange of ideas and culture, enriching Mycenaean society. However, warfare was never far from the Mycenaeans' daily life. Their martial society valued strength and honor, and their kings were often depicted as great warriors. The Mycenaean military engaged in numerous conflicts with neighboring peoples, including the Minoans, the Trojans, and other Aegean cultures. The wealth of their cities and their expansive trade routes made them both powerful and vulnerable to attack. One of the most enduring legacies of the Mycenaean civilization lies in the works of Homer, the ancient Greek poet whose epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey, tell the stories of the Trojan War and the heroic journey of Odysseus. These epic tales, composed centuries after the fall of Mycenae, were based on the legends and heroes of the Mycenaean era. The stories of Achilles, Hector, Agamemnon, and other warriors are deeply rooted in the values of Mycenaean society: valor in battle, loyalty to the gods, and the quest for honor. The Iliad, in particular, is a powerful reflection of Mycenaean warrior culture. It chronicles the final stages of the Trojan War, a conflict that historians believe may have been inspired by real events, though embellished with divine intervention and heroic feats. The Mycenaean warriors, as depicted in these epics, are noble but flawed, driven by a desire for glory but often bound by fate. The Odyssey, the sequel to the Iliad, follows the adventures of Odysseus as he returns home after the fall of Troy. His journey is filled with challenges and obstacles, reflecting the harsh realities of the Mycenaean world, where both gods and mortals played significant roles in shaping destiny. In addition to their military and poetic legacies, the Mycenaeans also made notable advancements in art and writing. They developed a script known as Linear B, which was used for record-keeping and administrative purposes. Unlike the Minoan Linear A, which remains undeciphered, Linear B was eventually deciphered in the 20th century, revealing that it was an early form of Greek. The Mycenaeans also produced distinctive pottery, often decorated with motifs such as warriors, chariots, and animals. Their art reflects the culture's fascination with warfare and heroic deeds, with many pieces illustrating scenes from the Iliad and Odyssey. Around 1100 BCE, the Mycenaean civilization entered a period of decline. Several factors are believed to have contributed to their downfall, including internal strife, invasions by the Dorians, and natural disasters such as earthquakes. The once great cities of Mycenae, Tiryns, and Pylos were abandoned, and the Mycenaean world was plunged into a period of instability known as the Greek Dark Ages. Despite their fall, the Mycenaeans' influence lived on in the cultures that followed. The stories and values of the Mycenaean era became central to the mythological traditions of ancient Greece, inspiring future generations of poets, philosophers, and historians. The Mycenaeans' legacy is deeply woven into the fabric of Greek culture. Their epic tales, their artistic achievements, and their military prowess laid the foundation for later Greek society. The heroic ideals embodied in the Iliad and Odyssey would continue to inspire Greek and Roman writers, and their influence can be seen in the works of such figures as Virgil, Sophocles, and Aeschylus. The Mycenaeans also played a pivotal role in the development of Greek language and literature. Their use of Linear B laid the groundwork for the development of the Greek alphabet, which would later revolutionize communication and literature in the ancient world. The Shire dynasty, believed to have existed around 1875 BCE to 1600 BCE, holds a profound place in the history of ancient China. As the first recorded dynasty in Chinese history, it is often shrouded in mystery and myth, and it marks the beginning of one of the world's oldest continuous civilizations. Despite its historical importance, the Shire dynasty exists in a delicate balance between fact and legend. Its story is told not only through ancient texts but also through oral traditions that have woven it into the fabric of Chinese cultural identity. The Shire dynasty is traditionally thought to have been founded by Emperor Yu the Great, a figure whose legacy is inseparably tied to the control of floods and the establishment of order. According to Chinese historical records such as the records of the Grand Historian by Sima Qian, Yu's triumph over the great floods of the Yellow River Basin was central to his rise to power and the establishment of the Xia dynasty. Yu's efforts to control the floods involved innovative flood management strategies, particularly the creation of a system of dikes, canals, and irrigation techniques. These measures not only saved countless lives but also facilitated the growth of agriculture, an essential foundation for the development of early Chinese society. By taming the waters and ensuring the stability of the land, Yu secured the loyalty of the people, which was instrumental in his establishment of the Xia dynasty. The Xia dynasty is considered by many historians to be the bridge between the mythological past and the more historically verifiable Shang dynasty. However, the absence of extensive archaeological evidence from the period makes it difficult to fully separate fact from myth, leaving a great deal of room for interpretation and debate. Yu the Great's role in founding the Xia dynasty is central to the mythology surrounding the dynasty. He is depicted as a heroic and self-sacrificing figure who worked tirelessly to manage the floods that ravaged the land. According to legend, Yu's father, Gun, had attempted to control the floods using a different approach, one that involved the construction of dams. However, Gun's efforts were unsuccessful, and he was punished by the emperor for his failure. Determined to succeed where his father had failed, Yu took a different approach. Instead of attempting to block the floods, he focused on redirecting the waters by digging channels and creating drainage systems. His success was attributed not only to his engineering skills but also to his perseverance and dedication to the well-being of his people. His work on flood control allowed agriculture to thrive, thus laying the foundation for the civilization to prosper. Yu's legacy as a ruler and a cultural hero played a significant role in establishing the legitimacy of the Xia dynasty. His descendants, who ruled the dynasty after him, were considered the direct heirs of his wisdom and virtue, reinforcing the dynasty's claim to the mandate of heaven, a concept that would later become a cornerstone of Chinese political philosophy. Political structure and governance. While little is known about the detailed political structure of the Xia dynasty, it is believed that the dynasty was characterized by a form of kingship that was hereditary. The ruler, or emperor, wielded significant power, but the dynasty was also supported by an advisory council made up of noble families and military leaders. The early Xia kings were likely seen as semi-divine figures who maintained their power through a combination of political alliances and military strength. The concept of the mandate of heaven, suggesting that the ruler's authority came from divine approval, would later become central to Chinese governance, but during the Xia period, the idea had not yet fully developed. Agriculture and land control were essential to the Xia dynasty's power structure. The rulers depended on the labor of peasants who worked the land, and the strength of the dynasty's military was crucial for maintaining territorial control over the Yellow River Valley. The role of the king was not only to govern but also to ensure prosperity and peace for the people. The decline of the Xia dynasty is traditionally attributed to internal strife, corruption, and the moral decay of later rulers. The last Xia ruler, King Jie, is remembered in Chinese history as a tyrant, whose indulgence and cruelty ultimately led to the downfall of the dynasty. According to legend, King Jie's misrule was marked by extravagance and cruelty, including the oppression of the people and the squandering of resources. The people's discontent with his rule ultimately led to a rebellion led by a military leader named Tang. Tang's victory over King Jie and the eventual overthrow of the Xia dynasty marked the rise of the Shang dynasty, which succeeded the Xia. The transition from the Xia to the Shang is often framed as a shift from the first, legendary dynasty to one that is more historically verifiable. While the fall of the Xia dynasty is recorded as a rebellion, some historians suggest that the decline of the dynasty may have been more gradual. It is possible that the Xia dynasty faced increasing challenges, such as internal conflicts, weakened central authority, or environmental changes, that made it vulnerable to the rise of the Shang rulers. The exact cause of its decline remains speculative, but it is clear that the Xia dynasty's political system and its rulers were unable to adapt to the changing circumstances. Unlike the Shang dynasty, which left behind abundant archaeological evidence, the Xia dynasty has left behind very little material culture to support its historical existence. The lack of definitive evidence has led to ongoing debates about the accuracy of the historical accounts of the Xia dynasty. Some scholars question whether the Xia was a real dynasty or merely a legendary precursor to the Shang dynasty. However, archaeological excavations in the Yellow River Basin have uncovered evidence that suggests the existence of early settlements that may have been associated with the Xia period. These findings include remnants of early cities, tools, and ceramics that point to a complex society with a degree of urbanization and social organization. Some researchers believe that the Xia dynasty existed as a relatively small but influential polity before it was eventually absorbed by the Shang dynasty. Despite the ongoing debate, many Chinese scholars and historians accept the Xia dynasty as the first historical dynasty in China, as it is integral to the foundational myths and cultural identity of the Chinese civilization. The Xia dynasty's connection to the ancient past has made it an enduring symbol of Chinese continuity, offering a glimpse into the formative years of one of the world's oldest civilizations. One of the most significant aspects of the Xia dynasty's legacy is the development of the concept of the mandate of heaven, which would later become a guiding principle of Chinese political thought. The idea that the right to rule came from divine approval provided a framework for understanding the rise and fall of dynasties in Chinese history. Though this concept was more fully developed during the Shang and Zhou dynasties, its origins can be traced back to the mythological foundations of the Xia dynasty. The mandate of heaven emphasized the importance of virtuous rule and the responsibility of the emperor to maintain harmony between the heavens, the earth, and the people. This idea would shape Chinese governance for centuries, influencing the rise of new dynasties and the eventual overthrow of those that were deemed unworthy. The Xia dynasty, with its mixture of myth and reality, stands as a bridge between the ancient past and the historical future of China. Though its precise nature and accomplishments remain elusive, its place in Chinese cultural memory is unassailable. It marks the beginning of the great dynastic cycles that would define Chinese history for millennia to come. The Olmec civilization, which thrived in Mesoamerica around 1200 BCE to 400 BCE, is often regarded as the mother culture of the region. While much about their society remains a mystery, the Olmec's profound influence on later Mesoamerican cultures, including the Maya, is unquestionable. Known for their monumental stone heads, sophisticated artistry, and contributions to the development of writing and mathematics, the Olmec civilization is one of the most enigmatic and foundational civilizations in the history of the Americas. The Olmec civilization flourished along the Gulf Coast of present-day Mexico, particularly in the modern states of Veracruz and Tabasco. The area is characterized by tropical rainforests, rich agricultural land, and abundant rivers, particularly the Coatzacoalcos River, which facilitated trade and communication throughout the region. The fertile soil of the area allowed for the cultivation of crops such as maize, beans, and squash, which formed the basis of the Olmec's diet. The Olmecs also engaged in fishing and hunting, which supplemented their agricultural production. One of the most striking features of the Olmec landscape is the vast network of ceremonial centers they established. These centers were often located near important rivers, reinforcing the crucial role that water played in their agricultural economy and cultural life. The Olmec's mastery of the environment not only supported their economic well-being but also shaped their religious and political systems. While little is definitively known about the Olmec political structure, evidence suggests that their society was highly organized and hierarchical. The Olmecs are thought to have been ruled by a class of elites, including priests, shamans, and warriors, with power likely concentrated in a central city or series of city-states. The primary evidence for this comes from large ceremonial centers like San Lorenzo, Larventer, and Tres Zapotes, which feature impressive monumental architecture and public works, suggesting the presence of a ruling class capable of mobilizing substantial resources and labor. The Olmecs were also likely involved in extensive trade networks, which extended as far as the Maya regions to the southeast and the highland areas of central Mexico. These trade routes facilitated the exchange of valuable materials, such as jade, obsidian, and rubber, which were used for a variety of purposes, including the creation of ceremonial objects, tools, and luxury items for the elite. Though the Olmec system of governance remains unclear, Their ability to construct monumental structures and elaborate artistic works suggests a well-organized society with a central authority capable of directing large-scale labor projects. Religion played a central role in Olmec society, influencing both their daily lives and their political structures. The Olmecs practiced a polytheistic belief system that revolved around a variety of gods and supernatural beings. One of the most iconic elements of Olmec religion was the jaguar, which was associated with power, strength, and mysticism. The jaguar was often depicted in Olmec art, both as a literal animal and as a symbol of shamanic transformation. Shamanism also played an essential role in Olmec spirituality. Shamans were believed to possess the ability to commune with the gods and the spirit world, often through rituals that involved the consumption of psychoactive substances, such as hallucinogenic plants. These practices were integral to Olmec ceremonies, which were designed to communicate with the divine and ensure the prosperity of their people. The Olmecs also practiced bloodletting and other forms of ritual sacrifice. These acts were performed to maintain cosmic balance and were often carried out by rulers or religious leaders as part of public ceremonies. These rituals were likely conducted at the large ceremonial centers, which were designed to facilitate the performance of such sacred rites. The Olmecs' religious beliefs were also closely tied to the cycles of nature, including the agricultural cycle. They understood the importance of the natural world and believed that the gods had the power to control the forces of nature, including rainfall and fertility. Thus, their ceremonies and rituals often sought to appease the gods and ensure a bountiful harvest. Olmec art is among the most distinctive and recognizably ancient in the Americas. The Olmecs are best known for their colossal stone heads, which are among the most iconic pieces of pre-Columbian art. These massive sculptures, some weighing as much as 40 tons, are believed to represent rulers or important figures in Olmec society. The heads were carved from basalt, a material that had to be transported from distant quarries, indicating the Olmecs' advanced knowledge of engineering and organization. The heads are notable for their unique, individualized facial features, which suggest that the Olmec sculptors sought to represent specific people rather than generic, idealized images. In addition to the colossal heads, the Olmecs produced a wide variety of other artistic objects, including jade figurines, masks, and other ceremonial items. Jade was particularly valued by the Olmecs, and they used it to craft intricate jewelry, statues, and ceremonial masks. Jade, with its rich green color and rarity, was associated with spiritual and political power, making it a symbol of the elite. Olmec iconography also featured complex symbols, many of which were related to their religious beliefs. The jaguar, as mentioned earlier, was a frequent motif, as were representations of other powerful animals and deities. These symbols often had dual meanings, representing both the natural world and the spiritual realm, and were used to communicate the relationship between the divine and the earthly. The Olmecs are also credited with the development of an early form of writing and a numerical system. While the exact nature of their writing system remains undeciphered, some scholars believe that the Olmecs used symbols and glyphs to record important events and religious rituals. These early forms of writing were likely precursors to the more sophisticated writing systems developed by later Mesoamerican cultures, such as the Maya. The decline of the Olmec civilization remains one of the great mysteries of Mesoamerican history. Around 400 BCE, many of the major Olmec centers, including San Lorenzo and Larventer, were abandoned. Scholars have proposed various theories to explain this decline, including environmental factors such as flooding, deforestation, and climate change, as well as internal social or political factors, such as warfare or the collapse of the ruling elite. It is also possible that the Olmecs experienced a cultural transformation rather than a complete collapse, with their traditions being absorbed by neighboring civilizations. Despite their decline, the Olmecs' cultural and artistic influence continued to reverberate throughout Mesoamerica. Their artistic styles, religious practices, and technological innovations were adopted and adapted by subsequent cultures, including the Maya and the Zapotecs. The Olmecs' monumental art, particularly the colossal heads, would serve as a model for later Mesoamerican civilizations. which also placed a high value on monumental public works and artistic expression. Legacy and influence on later Mesoamerican cultures. The Olmec's legacy lies not only in their iconic art but also in their contributions to the development of Mesoamerican culture. The Maya, for instance, are believed to have been heavily influenced by Olmec art and religious practices. The Maya, known for their sophisticated understanding of mathematics, astronomy, and writing, inherited much of their cultural knowledge from the Olmecs. Elements of Olmec art, including the depiction of supernatural beings and the use of jade, can be seen in Maya imagery and rituals. The Olmecs also influenced the development of later Mesoamerican civilizations, such as the Zapotecs and the Mixtecs, who incorporated elements of Olmec architecture, ceramics, and iconography into their own cultures. The Olmec legacy can also be seen in the way that later civilizations in the region conceptualized power, divinity, and the relationship between the natural and spiritual worlds. The Olmec civilization remains one of the most fascinating and enigmatic cultures in the history of Mesoamerica. While much of their society, governance, and everyday life remains shrouded in mystery, their cultural achievements and artistic legacy continue to captivate the imagination of scholars and laypeople alike. The colossal stone heads and the distinctive artistic style of the Olmecs are testament to their advanced craftsmanship and their ability to create enduring symbols of power and authority. Although the Olmec civilization eventually declined, their influence on subsequent cultures in Mesoamerica was profound and long-lasting. The Maya, Zapotecs, and other Mesoamerican civilizations built upon the foundations laid by the Olmecs, creating the rich and complex cultures that would define the region for centuries. The Phoenician civilization, which flourished from around 1550 BCE to 300 BCE along the coastal regions of present-day Lebanon, Syria, and Israel, is often regarded as one of the most influential cultures in the ancient world. Though not an empire in the traditional sense, the Phoenicians were masterful maritime traders, whose far-reaching influence spread across the Mediterranean, leaving a lasting legacy on subsequent civilizations. Perhaps their most significant contribution was the development of the alphabet, a system of writing that would serve as the foundation for many modern scripts. The Phoenicians were based in the Levantine coastal regions, which were geographically well-positioned for maritime trade. The area, encompassing modern-day Lebanon, western Syria, and northern Israel, is characterized by rugged mountains, a narrow coastal plain, and numerous natural harbors along the Mediterranean Sea. These features made it an ideal location for the development of seafaring skills and trade networks. Unlike other ancient civilizations that were based around large river systems, the Phoenicians relied on the Mediterranean for their prosperity. Their coastal cities, including Tyre, Sidon, and Byblos, became renowned for their strategic locations, facilitating trade routes across the Mediterranean and even as far as the British Isles, Africa, and the Near East. The Mediterranean environment also played a crucial role in the Phoenician economy. The fertile coastal regions allowed the Phoenicians to grow various crops, such as grain and olives, and to engage in fishing. However, it was their control over trade, particularly in luxury goods like purple dye, timber, and glass, that truly distinguished them as economic powerhouses in the ancient world. The Phoenicians are perhaps best known for their maritime prowess. They developed advanced shipbuilding techniques, creating sturdy, reliable vessels that could navigate the open seas and carry substantial cargo. The Phoenician ships were crucial to the establishment of extensive trade routes throughout the Mediterranean, connecting various cultures and regions. These ships also enabled the Phoenicians to establish colonies, such as Carthage, which later grew into a powerful entity in its own right. At the height of Phoenician trade, their influence spanned from the eastern Mediterranean, along the coast of modern-day Turkey and Greece, to the western Mediterranean, including parts of North Africa, Sicily, and southern Spain. They traded a wide variety of goods, including precious metals, timber, glassware, and textiles, but one of their most significant exports was the famed Tyrian purple dye. This rich purple pigment, made from the murex sea snail, was highly prized in the ancient world, symbolizing wealth and royalty. The Phoenicians' ability to control the production of this dye gave them a unique economic advantage, and it became a symbol of their craftsmanship and commercial success. The Phoenicians were not merely traders, they were also exceptional navigators and cartographers, capable of charting the vast Mediterranean Sea and venturing into uncharted waters. Their navigational skills were instrumental in establishing the far-reaching trade networks that connected distant peoples, cultures, and civilizations. The Phoenician civilization was not a unified empire, but rather a collection of independent city-states. These city-states, including Tyre, Sidon, and Byblos, were each governed by their own kings or local rulers, yet they shared common cultural and religious practices. Despite the lack of centralization, the Phoenician city-states often cooperated on matters of trade and defense, forming alliances that strengthened their collective influence in the Mediterranean. Each city-state had its own political structure, but they were generally ruled by a king or a council of elders. The kings were often seen as divine representatives, and their authority was bolstered by the prosperity of their cities through trade. The Phoenicians were also known for their ability to negotiate and maintain peaceful relationships with their neighbors, including the Egyptians, the Greeks, and later the Romans. The absence of a single centralized government meant that the Phoenician civilization was fragmented, but this structure allowed for a great degree of flexibility in trade and diplomacy. It also facilitated the expansion of Phoenician colonies, which were established to protect trade routes and to serve as centers of commerce. One of the most famous of these colonies was Carthage, located in modern-day Tunisia, which would later rise to prominence as a powerful rival to Rome. The Phoenician religion was polytheistic, with a pantheon of gods and goddesses who were believed to govern various aspects of the natural and human world. The most prominent deity in the Phoenician pantheon was Baal, the storm god, who was associated with fertility, rain, and agriculture. Other important deities included Ashera, the mother goddess, and Melkart, the god of the city of Tyre. Rituals and sacrifices were common, and temples were built in honor of these gods, often serving as centers for political and religious activity. Phoenician religious practices were deeply intertwined with their commercial and diplomatic activities. For instance, the Phoenicians were known for their offerings of precious goods, including ivory, textiles, and fine pottery, to their gods. These offerings often served not only as acts of devotion, but also as expressions of the wealth and prosperity brought about by their trade networks. In addition to their religious practices, the Phoenicians were skilled craftsmen and artists, known for their intricate jewelry, pottery, and textiles. Their art was influenced by both their eastern neighbors, such as the Egyptians and Mesopotamians, and their western counterparts, including the Greeks. Phoenician glasswork was especially renowned, with Phoenician artisans creating colorful glass beads and vessels that were highly valued across the Mediterranean. One of the Phoenicians' most lasting contributions to world history was their development of an alphabetic system of writing. The Phoenician alphabet, which emerged around 1000 BCE, is considered one of the earliest known alphabets and is the direct precursor to many modern scripts, including Greek, Latin, Arabic, and Hebrew. Unlike earlier writing systems, such as cuneiform and hieroglyphs, which were complex and based on symbols that represented words or syllables, the Phoenician alphabet used a relatively simple set of characters to represent individual sounds. This made it easier to learn and use than other systems, allowing for broader literacy and more widespread communication. The Phoenician alphabet spread quickly throughout the Mediterranean as a result of their trade networks. It was adopted and adapted by several cultures, including the Greeks, who modified it to create their own writing system, and the Romans, who later adapted the Greek alphabet into the Latin script. The widespread use of the Phoenician alphabet revolutionized communication in the ancient world and laid the foundation for the development of written languages in the Western world. The Phoenician civilization began to decline in the 4th century BCE, primarily due to the rise of other Mediterranean powers, particularly the Greeks and the Romans. The city-state of Tyre was besieged and destroyed by Alexander the Great in 332 BCE. And while Phoenician culture continued to influence the Mediterranean world, the civilization itself slowly faded from prominence. However, The legacy of the Phoenicians endures to this day. Their alphabet became the basis for many modern writing systems, and their contributions to maritime trade and navigation had a profound influence on the development of global commerce. The Phoenicians' ability to build a vast network of trade routes and colonies helped to shape the economic and cultural landscape of the ancient Mediterranean and beyond. The Phoenicians also left an indelible mark on the civilizations that followed, including the Greeks, Romans, and Arabs, all of whom incorporated elements of Phoenician culture, art, and trade into their own societies. In particular, the city of Carthage, once a Phoenician colony, would rise to prominence as a powerful empire in its own right, challenging Rome for control of the Mediterranean until its eventual destruction in the Punic Wars. The Phoenician civilization, though not as widely known as other ancient cultures, played a pivotal role in shaping the Mediterranean world. Their achievements in maritime trade, art, and writing laid the groundwork for many of the cultural developments that would follow. The Phoenician alphabet, in particular, continues to influence modern societies and stands as one of the most important inventions in human history. As we reflect on their legacy, it is clear that the Phoenicians were not only brilliant traders and navigators, but also creators of a lasting cultural and intellectual heritage that has endured through the millennia. The Hittite Empire, which flourished from around 1600 BCE to 1178 BCE in Anatolia, which is now in Turkey, represents one of the most important yet often overlooked civilizations of the ancient Near East. The Hittites are known for their early use of iron tools, their development of a sophisticated legal system, and their interactions with neighboring powers, such as Egypt and Mesopotamia. Although the Hittite Empire eventually succumbed to the forces of invasion and internal decline, their contributions to military technology, governance, and culture have left an enduring legacy. The Hittite Empire was centered in Anatolia, a region surrounded by mountain ranges and bordered by the Mediterranean to the south. The capital city, Hattusar, near modern-day Bozkale in central Turkey, was located in the heart of this vast and strategic territory. Anatolia was rich in natural resources, particularly timber, stone, and precious metals, which were vital for the empire's military and economic success. The Hittites were Indo-European people who likely migrated into the region from the steppes to the north. By around 1600 BCE, they had established a powerful kingdom, initially known as the Hittite Old Kingdom, which grew in strength through a combination of military conquest and diplomatic alliances. The Hittite kings expanded their influence throughout Anatolia and into parts of Mesopotamia and Syria, eventually forming a powerful empire with a reach that stretched across the ancient world. The Hittite political system was monarchical, with a king serving as both the political and religious leader. The king was considered the representative of the storm god, the primary deity of the Hittite pantheon, and was responsible for maintaining the divine order on earth. This religious aspect of kingship was closely tied to the legitimacy of the king's rule and the success of the empire itself. The Hittite king was also a military leader, directing the empire's armies and overseeing its expansion and defense. However, Hittite kingship was not an absolute monarchy. The kingdom had a council of nobles and officials who played a significant role in governance, advising the king on important matters of state. This system of checks and balances allowed the king to maintain authority while ensuring that the elite classes had a voice in political decisions. Hittite society was organized into a rigid hierarchy. Below the king were the high-ranking nobles, priests, and military commanders, who wielded significant power and influence. The majority of the population, however, were farmers, artisans, and laborers, who provided the resources necessary for the empire's expansion and maintenance. While there was a clear social structure, the Hittites were known for their relatively flexible approach to social mobility. For example, it was possible for skilled artisans or military commanders to rise in status, as evidenced by the prominence of certain non-royal families in the empire's administration. One of the most remarkable achievements of the Hittite Empire was its early use of iron, particularly in the production of weapons and tools. The Hittites were among the first civilizations to forge iron on a large scale, and their mastery of this material gave them a distinct advantage over their rivals. Iron tools were significantly more durable than the bronze tools that had been used by earlier civilizations, and their use in warfare revolutionized the way armies fought. The Hittite military, equipped with iron weapons, such as swords, spears, and chariots, was able to engage in more effective and sustained campaigns. The superior quality of their iron weapons allowed the Hittites to establish dominance over neighboring regions and expand their empire. The Hittites also understood the strategic importance of controlling iron resources. They established ironworking centers within their empire and controlled the trade of iron ore, ensuring a steady supply of this valuable resource. This contributed to their ability to maintain a powerful military and sustain their empire's economy. Another significant contribution of the Hittite Empire was its sophisticated legal system, which provided a framework for maintaining order and justice within the empire. The Hittite legal code, known as the laws of the Hittites, it was a set of laws that governed a wide range of issues, from property rights to criminal offenses. This code is one of the earliest examples of written law in history and provides valuable insights into the social and political structure of the Hittites. The Hittite legal code was influenced by earlier law codes, particularly the Code of Hammurabi from Babylon, but it also contained distinctive elements that reflected the unique nature of Hittite society. The laws were inscribed on clay tablets, and the king, as the representative of the gods, was responsible for ensuring that justice was upheld. The Hittite legal system was highly structured, with laws addressing various aspects of daily life. These laws included provisions for marriage, inheritance, slavery, and crime, as well as specific punishments for offenses. For example, theft was punishable by fines or, in some cases, corporal punishment, while murder was punishable by death. The code also included laws that protected the rights of women, ensuring that they had legal protections in marriage and inheritance matters. One notable feature of the Hittite legal system was its focus on restitution rather than retribution. Rather than seeking to punish wrongdoers solely for their actions, the Hittite legal code often sought to restore balance by requiring offenders to compensate victims for their losses. This approach to justice was seen as more restorative and aimed at maintaining social harmony within the empire. Religion played a central role in Hittite society, and the Hittites practiced a polytheistic belief system that incorporated deities from a variety of cultures, including those of the Mesopotamians, Hurrians, and Indo-European traditions. The storm god, Tarhunt, was the chief deity of the Hittite pantheon, and he was often depicted as a warrior god who controlled the weather and was responsible for the fertility of the land. The Hittites built grand temples and religious structures to honor their gods, and religious rituals were an integral part of royal life. Kings often participated in religious ceremonies to secure the favor of the gods and ensure the well-being of the empire. In addition to their polytheistic beliefs, the Hittites also practiced rituals of divination, interpreting omens and signs to guide decision-making and military campaigns. Hittite culture was influenced by a variety of neighboring civilizations, including the Babylonians, Assyrians, and Egyptians. Hittite art and architecture reflected this cultural exchange, incorporating elements from these societies while also maintaining distinctive Hittite styles. The Hittites were skilled artisans, producing intricately decorated pottery, jewelry, and metalwork. Their architectural achievements included the construction of impressive fortifications, such as the walls of Hattusar, as well as monumental gateways and royal palaces. The Hittite Empire began to decline in the 12th century BCE, likely due to a combination of internal strife, external invasions, and economic instability. The so-called Sea peoples, a group of maritime raiders, played a significant role in the empire's downfall, as they attacked and destroyed many of the Hittite cities. Additionally, the shift in regional power dynamics, with the rise of new empires such as the Assyrians and the Neo-Babylonians, further weakened the Hittites' position. By around 1178 BCE, the Hittite Empire had effectively collapsed, and its territories were absorbed by neighboring powers. However, the legacy of the Hittites endured, particularly in their contributions to legal systems and military technology. The use of iron in warfare, the development of legal codes, and the Hittites' cultural influence on later civilizations ensured that their impact on history would be felt long after their fall. The Hittites were not only skilled warriors and diplomats but also innovative thinkers who helped lay the groundwork for the development of later empires in the ancient Near East. Their legal code, military advancements, and cultural achievements left a lasting imprint on the civilizations that followed. The Kingdom of Kush, situated to the south of ancient Egypt in the region known as Nubia, which is now Sudan, was one of the most influential and remarkable civilizations of the ancient world. Flourishing from approximately 2450 BCE until its eventual absorption by other powers in the 1st century BCE, the Kingdom of Kush was renowned for its sophisticated culture, monumental architecture, and profound interactions with neighboring Egypt. Despite its proximity to Egypt, Kush developed its own unique identity, but also served as a key player in the exchange of ideas, goods, and even political power between the two great civilizations. The Kingdom of Kush occupied the area to the south of Egypt, between the 1st and 6th cataracts of the Nile River, in what is now Sudan. This strategic location made it both an advantageous position for trade and a natural border for Egypt's southern frontier. The Nile River, which runs through both Egypt and Kush, was the lifeblood of both civilizations, providing water, fertile soil for agriculture, and a vital transportation route for the movement of people, goods, and ideas. Kush's geographic location allowed it to control key trade routes that connected the Nile Valley with the heart of Africa. This positioning enabled the kingdom to access valuable resources such as gold, ivory, ebony, and exotic animals, which they traded with Egypt and other neighboring regions. The land of Kush was rich in natural resources, which contributed to its prosperity and longevity. Additionally, the region's rugged terrain, with its mountainous landscapes and vast deserts, provided natural protection from external invasions. The political structure of the Kingdom of Kush was based on a centralized monarchy, much like that of Egypt. The king, known as the Jakandake or Kushite king, was regarded as the divine ruler, responsible for the protection of the kingdom, the maintenance of order, and the prosperity of the people. Much like the Egyptian pharaoh, the Kushite king was believed to have a sacred role as the intermediary between the gods and the people. The capital city of Kush, initially at Tarseti and later moved to the more famous site of Meroe, was the center of political, religious, and military activity. The kings of Kush were often depicted as powerful and regal figures, with elaborate burial practices and monumental tombs that mirrored those of their Egyptian counterparts. Over time, the Kingdom of Kush developed its own distinct style of kingship and royal representation, while still drawing heavily on Egyptian influences. The kings of Kush were known for their strong military presence and their strategic prowess. The Kingdom of Kush periodically interacted with Egypt, often engaging in both warfare and diplomacy. The Kushite kings were also notable for their ability to maintain political independence from Egypt, even though the two regions had frequent cultural exchanges. However, during certain periods, particularly during the 25th dynasty of Egypt, the Kingdom of Kush actually ruled Egypt itself, establishing the Kushite dynasty and ushering in a unique chapter in the shared history of both civilizations. Kushite culture was deeply influenced by ancient Egyptian traditions, but it also maintained a distinctive identity that was rooted in its Nubian origins. Religion played a central role in both cultures, and many of the gods and religious practices worshipped by the Kushites were similar to those of the Egyptians. Like the Egyptians, the Kushites practiced polytheism and venerated deities associated with the natural world, including gods of the sun, earth, and the Nile River. The most important god in the Kushite pantheon was Amun, the king of the gods, who was closely associated with the Egyptian god Amun-Ra. The Kushites built large temples dedicated to Amun, and they believed that their kings were directly descended from this powerful god. This religious connection with Egypt was one of the main reasons for the close relationship between the two civilizations. However, while Kushite religion shared many features with Egypt, it also had unique elements that reflected the kingdom's distinct cultural identity. For example, the Kushites were known to worship a variety of local deities, many of whom were represented as lions or lionesses. The lioness goddess, Sekhmet, was one of the most prominent figures in Kushite religion, symbolizing strength, courage, and protection. One of the most distinctive features of Kushite civilization was its architectural legacy, particularly in the construction of pyramids. Although Egypt is most famous for its pyramids, the Kingdom of Kush also developed its own tradition of pyramid building, which was influenced by Egyptian design but distinct in its style and purpose. The Kushites built their pyramids in a region known as Nubia, specifically at sites such as Meroe and Napata. These pyramids, while smaller and more steeply angled than their Egyptian counterparts, still adhere to the essential design principles of Egyptian pyramid construction. The Kushite pyramids were primarily constructed as royal tombs, just like the Egyptian pyramids, and they were often surrounded by a complex of smaller tombs and temples. The Meroe pyramids, in particular, stand as a testament to the engineering prowess and religious devotion of the Kushite people. These pyramids, with their distinct narrow bases and towering structures, have been preserved to this day and serve as a reminder of the kingdom's lasting influence on the region. The pyramids of Meroe, some 200 in total, were constructed between the 3rd century BCE and the 1st century CE, during the height of the Kingdom of Meroe. These structures were part of a larger religious and cultural center that included temples, royal palaces, and other significant buildings. In addition to pyramids, the Kushites also built impressive temples dedicated to their gods. These temples, often made of stone, were decorated with intricate carvings and inscriptions that depicted the kings of Kush and their religious ceremonies. One of the most famous Kushite temples is the Temple of Amun at Jebel Barkal, located in modern-day Sudan. This temple, dedicated to the god Amun, was a major center of worship for both the Kushites and the Egyptians, reflecting the close religious ties between the two civilizations. The Kingdom of Kush's relationship with ancient Egypt was characterized by both rivalry and cooperation. For much of its history, Kush was a powerful and independent kingdom, but it was also influenced by Egypt's culture, religion, and political systems. The Kushites were often in conflict with the Egyptians, particularly during periods when the two kingdoms vied for control over trade routes and territorial dominance in the Nile Valley. Despite these conflicts, there were also periods of peaceful coexistence and cooperation. Trade between Egypt and Kush was vital for both civilizations, and goods such as gold, incense, and exotic animals were exchanged regularly. The two kingdoms also shared many cultural practices, including the worship of similar gods and the use of hieroglyphic writing. One of the most notable periods of cooperation between Egypt and Kush occurred during the 25th dynasty, when a series of Kushite kings known as the Kushite dynasty ruled Egypt. This dynasty, which lasted from around 747 BCE to 656 BCE, saw the Kushite kings unite Egypt under their rule, reintroducing many Egyptian cultural and religious practices that had declined in the preceding centuries. The Kushite pharaohs, such as Pi and Taharqa, were revered as powerful and capable rulers, and their reigns marked a period of cultural renewal and stability in Egypt. The Kingdom of Kush eventually declined due to a combination of factors, including internal strife, economic difficulties, and invasions from external forces. By the 1st century BCE, the kingdom had largely disintegrated and was absorbed by the expanding Roman Empire. However, the legacy of the Kingdom of Kush endured long after its fall. Its influence on the culture, religion, and art of the region continued to be felt for centuries. The Kushites left behind a rich cultural and architectural legacy, including their distinctive pyramids, temples, and royal tombs. Their contributions to the development of African civilization and their role in shaping the cultural exchanges between Egypt and Nubia are significant. Today, the remains of Kushite cities and monuments serve as a reminder of the kingdom's power, sophistication, and enduring influence. The Etruscan civilization, which flourished in central Italy from approximately 750 BCE to 300 BCE, remains one of the most intriguing and enigmatic cultures in the ancient world. Though it was eventually absorbed into the expanding power of Rome, the Etruscans played a crucial role in shaping the cultural and political foundations of early Roman society. They were known for their advanced art, architecture, and sophisticated urban planning, as well as their distinctive religious beliefs and social structures. The Etruscan civilization existed in the region that roughly corresponds to modern-day Tuscany, as well as parts of Umbria and Lazio, and its influence extended beyond the borders of Italy. Despite the Romans' eventual dominance, the Etruscans left a lasting legacy that would shape the development of Roman culture and civilization. The Etruscans inhabited a region known as Etruria, situated in central Italy, between the Arno and Tiber rivers. This strategic location allowed them to control important trade routes between the Italian peninsula, the Mediterranean Sea, and the broader ancient world. Etruria was rich in natural resources, particularly iron and copper, which enabled the Etruscans to develop advanced metallurgy and trade extensively with neighboring cultures such as the Greeks, Phoenicians, and Egyptians. The exact origins of the Etruscans have long been a subject of debate among scholars. Ancient Roman historians, such as Livy and Pliny the Elder, believed that the Etruscans were an indigenous Italian people. However, other accounts suggested that the Etruscans were migrants who had arrived from the east, possibly from Anatolia, modern-day Turkey. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus even claimed that the Etruscans were originally Lydians who had settled in Italy after fleeing a famine. Modern archaeological evidence suggests a mixture of indigenous and external influences, with the Etruscans emerging as a distinct cultural group in the 8th century BCE. Etruscan society was organized into city-states, each with its own ruler and governing body. The most powerful Etruscan cities included Veii, Tarquinia, Cerveteri, and Volsi, each of which had its own distinctive culture and traditions. These cities were often united by common language, religion, and a shared sense of identity, but they were also fiercely independent and engaged in frequent rivalries. The Etruscan political system was initially monarchic, with kings, or veliucomones, who held absolute power. However, by the 6th century BCE, many Etruscan cities had adopted a more republican form of government, with elected magistrates and councils. The political structure of the Etruscans was influenced by their religious beliefs, as the kings were often seen as intermediaries between the gods and the people, a role similar to that of the pharaohs in Egypt or the early Roman kings. Etruscan society was hierarchical, with a distinct division between the aristocracy and commoners. The aristocracy, known for their wealth and influence, controlled much of the political and religious life in Etruscan cities. The common people, while still important to the functioning of the civilization, had less political power. Etruscan women, however, enjoyed relatively high status compared to other ancient societies. They were allowed to participate in religious ceremonies, attend banquets, and even engage in business and property ownership, which was unusual for the time. Religion played a central role in Etruscan life, and the Etruscans practiced polytheism, worshipping a variety of gods and goddesses who governed different aspects of the natural world and human existence. The Etruscan pantheon was heavily influenced by Greek and Near Eastern deities, and many Etruscan gods had counterparts in Greek mythology. For example, the Etruscan god Tin, or Tins, was equivalent to the Greek god Zeus, while Uni was similar to the Greek Hero. The Etruscans believed that the gods communicated their will through signs, omens, and rituals. One of the most important practices in Etruscan religion was divination, the interpretation of signs and omens, such as the flight patterns of birds or the entrails of sacrificial animals. Etruscan priests, known as haruspices, were highly trained in the art of interpreting these omens and played a crucial role in decision-making, both in matters of state and religious practice. Temples and sanctuaries dedicated to the gods were important centers of Etruscan religious life. These structures were often adorned with elaborate sculptures, frescoes, and inscriptions, showcasing the Etruscan skill in art and architecture. One of the most famous Etruscan religious sites is the sanctuary at Pergae, where inscriptions in both Etruscan and Phoenician have been discovered, indicating the cultural exchange between the two civilizations. One of the most enduring legacies of the Etruscan civilization is its art and architecture. The Etruscans were skilled artisans, creating vibrant and detailed works of art that reflected their religious beliefs, social structures, and daily life. Much of what we know about Etruscan art comes from tomb paintings, frescoes, and sculptures, as well as from artifacts such as pottery, jewelry, and metalwork. Etruscan tombs, particularly those in Tarquinia and Cerveteri, are among the most important sources of information about Etruscan art. The tombs were often elaborate burial chambers, decorated with frescoes that depicted scenes from the afterlife, daily life, and the banquet culture of the Etruscan elite. These frescoes, which can still be seen in the tombs today, provide valuable insight into Etruscan society, fashion, and religious beliefs. The Tomb of the Leopards, located in Tarquinia, is one of the most famous examples of Etruscan tomb art. The tomb is decorated with a fresco showing a banquet scene, where men and women are reclining on couches, enjoying food and drink. The imagery in the tombs emphasizes the importance of feasting, music, and social gatherings in Etruscan culture. The Etruscans were also skilled sculptors, and their works often depicted gods, warriors, and animals. Bronze statues, such as the famous Irringator, or of Orator, and the Chimera of Arezzo, showcase their mastery of metalworking. The Chimera, a mythical creature with the body of a lion, the head of a goat, and a serpent's tail, is an iconic example of Etruscan bronze sculpture, reflecting their rich mythological traditions. Etruscan jewelry was highly detailed and intricately crafted, with designs that incorporated animals, geometric patterns, and symbolic motifs. The gold jewelry found in Etruscan tombs is some of the finest examples of ancient craftsmanship, and the Etruscans were known for their advanced techniques in filigree and hammered metalwork. Etruscan architecture, particularly in their cities and religious structures, was advanced for its time. The Etruscans were among the first to use the arch in architecture, a technique that would later be adopted by the Romans. They built robust city walls, gateways, and defensive structures, demonstrating their expertise in military engineering. The Etruscan temple, characterized by its wooden roof and stone or brick walls, was an important architectural feature. Unlike the stone temples of the Greeks, Etruscan temples were constructed using perishable materials, such as wood and terracotta. However, these temples often featured elaborately decorated terracotta statues on their roofs, depicting gods and other important figures. The decline of the Etruscan civilization began in the 5th century BCE, as the growing power of Rome and other neighboring civilizations began to erode Etruscan independence. Rome, in particular, began to exert military and political pressure on the Etruscan city-states, eventually leading to their assimilation into the Roman Republic by the late 4th century BCE. Despite the decline of their civilization, the Etruscans' influence on Rome remained significant. Roman art, architecture, and religious practices were heavily influenced by Etruscan models, and many early Roman kings were of Etruscan descent. The Etruscans' contributions to Roman engineering, including the development of the arch and the use of city planning, would play a crucial role in the development of Roman architecture and urbanism. Although the Etruscan civilization itself eventually disappeared, its legacy lived on through the Romans and later through the influence of Italian Renaissance artists who looked back to the classical world for inspiration. The Etruscans' contributions to art, architecture, and religion were essential in shaping the course of Western civilization. The Etruscan civilization, with its advanced technology, rich cultural traditions, and significant influence on its neighbors, remains one of the most fascinating and influential cultures of the ancient world. Their art, architecture, and political systems laid the foundations for many of the achievements that would define the Roman Empire and, by extension, much of Western culture. The Carthaginian Empire, one of the most formidable powers in the ancient Mediterranean world, stood as the preeminent Phoenician colony for centuries. Emerging around 814 BCE, Carthage, located in modern-day Tunisia, would rise to dominate maritime trade, establish vast commercial networks, and become a leading military force in the region. However, Carthage's legacy is also defined by its fierce rivalry with Rome, which ultimately led to the Carthaginian Empire's downfall. The history of Carthage spans more than a millennium, from its establishment as a Phoenician colony to its eventual destruction in 146 BCE after the Third Punic War. Despite its ultimate defeat, Carthage's influence on the ancient world, particularly in the realms of naval warfare, commerce, and culture is profound. Carthage was founded by Phoenician settlers from the city of Tyre, now Lebanon, around 814 BCE, according to ancient sources. The Phoenicians, renowned for their seafaring and trading prowess, established Carthage on the coast of North Africa near the Gulf of Tunis, a location that provided access to both the Mediterranean Sea and the wealth of resources in the surrounding regions. The strategic position allowed Carthage to develop into a maritime powerhouse and commercial hub. In its early years, Carthage functioned as a Phoenician colony, governed by a council of elders and a chief magistrate known as a Sophete. The Carthaginians adopted many aspects of Phoenician culture, including their religious practices, language, and art. However, Carthage soon evolved into an independent entity with its own political and military systems, and began to assert its influence over surrounding areas. Carthage's success was largely attributed to its prowess in maritime trade. Its location provided the ideal base for controlling Mediterranean trade routes, particularly the routes that connected the Western Mediterranean with the Eastern Mediterranean and beyond to North Africa, Spain, and the Near East. Carthage's fleet, one of the most powerful in the ancient world, enabled it to establish colonies along the coasts of North Africa, Sicily, Sardinia, and the Balearic Islands, creating a network of prosperous trading posts. One of the most distinctive features of Carthage's rise to power was its formidable navy, which played a central role in the city's military strategies. The Carthaginian fleet, made up of warships called triremes and quinqueremes, was unrivaled in the Mediterranean for much of its history. The Carthaginians excelled at naval warfare, developing advanced shipbuilding techniques, tactics, and strategies that made their fleet a dominant force. The Carthaginian navy was essential in protecting its extensive trade routes, securing valuable resources such as silver, gold, and grain from regions like Spain and North Africa. In addition to protecting trade, Carthage's navy was also used to exert military influence over rival powers, including Greek colonies in Sicily, the expanding Roman Republic, and the various other Mediterranean cultures. Carthage's naval superiority was most evident during the Punic Wars, a series of 3 conflicts between Carthage and Rome. The First Punic War in 264 to 241 BCE saw Carthage and Rome engage in a bitter struggle for control of the Mediterranean island of Sicily. Despite initial setbacks, Carthage's superior naval fleet gave it a significant advantage, allowing it to challenge Rome on the seas. However, a pivotal defeat at the Battle of the Aegates Islands in 241 BCE, caused by Rome's adaptation to naval warfare, marked the beginning of Carthage's military decline. The Second Punic War in 218 to 201 BCE, often regarded as one of the most dramatic and pivotal conflicts in history, witnessed the legendary Carthaginian general Hannibal Barca lead his forces across the Alps to invade Italy. Hannibal's tactical brilliance and his victory at the Battle of Cannae in 216 BCE were among the most significant achievements of the Carthaginian military. Yet despite his success on land, Hannibal was unable to secure the necessary naval support to fully challenge Rome. This imbalance between the armies of Rome and Carthage, particularly in terms of naval power, contributed significantly to Carthage's eventual defeat. Carthaginian society was deeply influenced by its Phoenician roots, but over the centuries, it developed unique cultural traits that distinguished it from its ancestors. Like the Phoenicians, Carthaginians were highly skilled in trade, navigation, and industry, but they also developed a rich artistic and intellectual culture. The Carthaginian economy was largely based on trade, and their merchants were among the most successful in the Mediterranean. Carthage imported raw materials from various parts of the Mediterranean and beyond, such as metals, textiles, and olive oil, and exported a wide range of products, including wine, pottery, and luxury goods. The wealth generated by trade allowed Carthage to establish impressive infrastructure, including marketplaces, harbors, and roads. The Carthaginian elite, made up of wealthy merchants and landowners, controlled much of the city's political power. The political system was a mix of oligarchic and aristocratic rule, with 2 Sophetes serving as the chief magistrates of the city. The Senate, composed of the city's elite families, held significant authority, and the Carthaginian government was known for its efficiency and organization. Carthaginian religion was deeply intertwined with the state and its political activities. The Carthaginians worshipped a wide range of deities, with Baal Hammon, the god of fertility and the sky, and Tarnet, the goddess of the moon, being among the most prominent. Religion played a central role in Carthaginian society, with ritual sacrifices, including the controversial practice of child sacrifice, being an integral part of their religious ceremonies. Though evidence for the widespread practice of child sacrifice remains debated, ancient sources suggest that it was a practice meant to appease the gods during times of crisis or war. Carthage's rivalry with Rome is one of the most famous in ancient history. As Rome expanded its influence in the Mediterranean, it increasingly came into conflict with Carthage, a power that had long dominated the region. The rivalry between the two powers culminated in the Punic Wars, 3 brutal conflicts that spanned over a century and determined the fate of the Mediterranean world. The First Punic War, 264 to 241 BCE, was primarily a naval conflict, triggered by the competition for control of Sicily. While Carthage initially dominated the seas, Rome adapted quickly, building a large fleet and learning naval tactics, ultimately defeating Carthage. As a result, Carthage was forced to cede control of Sicily to Rome and pay a hefty war indemnity. The Second Punic War, 218 to 201 BCE, is often remembered for Hannibal's daring invasion of Italy, which included his famous march across the Alps with war elephants. Hannibal's tactical genius led to several crushing victories against Roman forces, but his inability to maintain naval superiority and receive reinforcements from Carthage contributed to his eventual defeat. The war ended with the Roman general Scipio Africanus' victory at the Battle of Zama in 202 BCE, forcing Carthage to relinquish its empire and accept harsh peace terms. The Third Punic War, 149 to 146 BCE, was the final chapter of the Carthaginian-Roman struggle. Fearing Carthage's resurgence, Rome launched a decisive campaign to destroy the city. After a brutal siege, Carthage was utterly destroyed, and its population was either killed or sold into slavery. The Romans famously sowed salt into the earth to ensure that Carthage could never rise again. Despite its ultimate destruction, the legacy of Carthage endures. The Carthaginian Empire was one of the most influential powers in the ancient Mediterranean world. Its achievements in naval warfare, trade, and culture have left an indelible mark on history. The Carthaginian legacy can still be seen in the many archaeological sites that remain today, from the ruins of Carthage itself to the artifacts that shed light on its rich civilization. The rivalry between Carthage and Rome, culminating in the Punic Wars, played a significant role in shaping the course of Western history. The defeat of Carthage paved the way for Roman dominance in the Mediterranean and beyond, ultimately leading to the rise of the Roman Empire. Yet, Carthage's achievements in trade, naval power, and urban development continue to be remembered as defining characteristics of a civilization that was once a leading force in the ancient world. In some ways, the story of Carthage is one of ambition, resilience, and ultimately tragedy, a civilization that reached the heights of power only to be consumed by its rival in the end. The Maya civilization, which flourished between approximately 250 CE and 900 CE, remains one of the most sophisticated and enigmatic cultures of the ancient world. Renowned for its achievements in mathematics, astronomy, architecture, and written language, the Maya established a vast network of city-states throughout present-day Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. Unlike centralized empires such as Rome or the Aztecs, the Maya civilization was composed of independent city-states, each ruled by a king but united by a shared cultural and religious tradition. From towering pyramids to intricate glyphs, the Maya left behind an extraordinary legacy that continues to intrigue scholars and archaeologists today. Their civilization was marked by remarkable advancements in agriculture, engineering, and governance, as well as deep spiritual beliefs that influenced every aspect of daily life. However, by the end of the 9th century, many major Maya cities experienced a mysterious decline, leaving behind questions that continue to puzzle historians. The roots of Maya civilization stretch back to at least 2000 BCE, when early agricultural communities began to settle in Mesoamerica. These early inhabitants cultivated staple crops such as maize, beans, and squash, foods that would sustain the Maya for millennia. Over time, these simple farming villages evolved into complex societies with hierarchical leadership structures, religious practices, and trade networks. By the pre-classic period, or in Numbers 2000 BC 250 CE, significant centers such as Nacbe and El Mirador in modern-day Guatemala had already constructed massive stone structures, demonstrating an early mastery of engineering and urban planning. The classic period marked the height of Maya civilization, during which monumental cities like Tikal, Palenque, Copan, and Calakmul flourished, serving as political, economic, and religious centers. Unlike the centralized rule of the Roman Empire or the later Aztec Empire, the Maya civilization was composed of numerous city-states, each governed by an elite ruler known as the Ajor, king. These rulers were believed to be divine intermediaries between the gods and the people, responsible for maintaining harmony through rituals, ceremonies, and warfare. The city-states frequently engaged in both alliances and conflicts, competing for resources, prestige, and territorial dominance. Some of the most powerful city-states included Tikal, located in modern-day Guatemala. Tikal was one of the largest and most influential Maya cities, boasting massive pyramids, palaces, and temples. Calakmul, a rival of Tikal, Calakmul was part of the so-called Snake Kingdom, which wielded significant power across the region. Palenque, known for its exquisite architecture and artistry, Palenque was a center of cultural and intellectual activity. Copan, a major hub for sculpture and hieroglyphic writing, Copan left behind some of the most detailed inscriptions of any Maya city. Despite their independence, these cities were connected through trade networks, religious practices, and common linguistic traditions. However, competition among them often led to warfare, shifting alliances, and power struggles. Maya cities were architectural masterpieces, featuring towering pyramids, elaborate palaces, ceremonial ball courts, and extensive water management systems. The Maya developed advanced engineering techniques, allowing them to build monumental structures without the use of metal tools, draft animals, or the wheel. One of the most iconic architectural achievements of the Maya is the Temple of the Inscriptions in Palenque, which contains the tomb of the great ruler Cayanich Janair Pakol. Another famous site, El Castillo at Chichen Itza, demonstrates the Maya's deep understanding of astronomy, as its design aligns with the equinoxes, casting a serpent-shaped shadow on the steps during certain times of the year. Maya engineers also excelled in urban planning, creating extensive reservoirs, aqueducts, and irrigation systems to support large populations. The ability to manage water resources was crucial, particularly in areas with unpredictable rainfall. The Maya made remarkable advancements in science and intellectual pursuits, particularly in the fields of mathematics, astronomy, and written language. The Maya were among the first civilizations to develop the concept of zero, a mathematical breakthrough that allowed for more complex calculations and calendar systems. Their vigesimal, base 20, numeral system enabled them to perform sophisticated calculations, which were essential for architecture, astronomy, and trade. Maya astronomers meticulously observed the movements of celestial bodies, allowing them to create highly accurate calendars. The long count calendar, which tracked historical events over vast periods, was one of their most impressive achievements. They also developed the 260-day Tzolk'in calendar and the 365-day Hab calendar, which were used for ritual and agricultural purposes. The Maya understood planetary cycles, eclipses, and solstices with astonishing precision. Many of their temples, such as the Caracol Observatory at Chichen Itza, were designed to align with astronomical events. The Maya developed one of the most sophisticated writing systems in the ancient world, consisting of intricate hieroglyphs that represented both sounds and ideas. Thousands of inscriptions have been found on stelae, easier stone monuments, pottery, and codices, which are folded books made of bark paper. Though many Maya texts were destroyed by Spanish conquistadors in the 16th century, a few surviving codices, such as the Dresden Codex, contain valuable astronomical, calendrical, and religious information. Maya religion was deeply intertwined with daily life, politics, and cosmology. They worshipped a vast pantheon of gods, including Itzamna, the god of wisdom and creator deity, Kaewul, the god of lightning and kingship, Chark, the rain god, crucial for agricultural success. Maya rulers often conducted elaborate rituals to appease the gods, including bloodletting ceremonies in which nobles would pierce themselves to offer their own blood. Human sacrifices were also performed, particularly in times of war or crisis, to ensure cosmic balance and divine favor. The sacred ball game, known as Poktarpok or Tlachtli, held significant religious meaning. The game symbolized cosmic struggles, and some matches may have ended with the sacrifice of players, particularly captives of war. By the late 9th century, many of the great Maya cities had been abandoned, leading to one of history's greatest mysteries, the decline of the Maya civilization. Several theories attempt to explain this sudden collapse, including environmental factors. Deforestation, soil depletion, and prolonged droughts may have made agriculture unsustainable. Overpopulation. As cities grew, the demand for food and resources may have exceeded supply, leading to societal collapse. Internal conflict. Increased warfare between rival city-states could have weakened the civilization. Political instability. The breakdown of centralized authority may have caused widespread chaos. While the great cities of the classic period were largely abandoned, Maya culture persisted. The Maya people continued to inhabit the region, and their descendants still maintain many of their traditions, languages, and cultural practices today. Despite its decline, the legacy of the Maya civilization endures. Their mathematical and astronomical achievements influenced later Mesoamerican cultures, while their art and architecture continue to inspire admiration. Today, millions of Maya descendants live in Mexico, Guatemala, and Belize, preserving elements of their ancestors' traditions, languages, and spiritual practices. Sites such as Tikal, Chichen Itza, and Palenque remain as testaments to the ingenuity and grandeur of the Maya. From their stunning cities to their intellectual achievements, the Maya stand as one of the most remarkable civilizations in history, a people whose knowledge and creativity shaped Mesoamerican culture for centuries to come. The Kingdom of Axum, one of the greatest civilizations of the ancient world, flourished in what is now modern-day Ethiopia and Eritrea between the 4th century BCE and the 1st century CE. Renowned for its strategic location, sophisticated trade networks, and early adoption of Christianity, Axum played a crucial role in the economic, cultural, and religious transformation of East Africa and the wider world. This civilization, though often overshadowed by contemporary empires like Rome and Persia, was a formidable power in its own right, influencing the regions surrounding the Red Sea and beyond. The Kingdom of Axum was situated in the Horn of Africa, an area that provided a unique advantage due to its access to both the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean. This location enabled Axum to become a powerful trading empire, connecting Africa with the Middle East, India, and the Mediterranean. The origins of Axum are linked to earlier civilizations in Ethiopia, particularly the DMT kingdom circa 10th to 5th century BCE, which laid the foundation for Axumite culture, language, and governance. The Axumites spoke Ge'ez, an ancient Semitic language that would later become the liturgical language of Ethiopian Christianity. The region's fertile highlands allowed for productive agriculture, particularly the cultivation of wheat, barley, and teff, a grain still used in Ethiopian cuisine today. By the 1st century CE, Axum had emerged as a dominant power in the region, benefiting from its control over major trade routes and its ability to access valuable resources like gold, ivory, and incense. One of the most defining characteristics of the Axumite kingdom was its role as a major center for commerce. The kingdom established extensive trade networks that connected Africa, Arabia, India, and the Roman Empire. Goods such as gold, ivory, frankincense, and myrrh were highly sought after in the ancient world, and Aksum's traders played a key role in supplying these commodities. Aksumite merchants exported exotic African goods while importing textiles, spices, and glassware from India and silk from China. Greek and Roman writers, including the author of the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, a 1st century CE navigational guide, mention Aksum as a thriving hub of commerce, describing the city of Agilis as a key port along the Red Sea. Unlike many contemporary African civilizations, Aksum developed a coinage system, striking gold, silver, and bronze coins. This use of currency, a practice adopted from Mediterranean cultures, reflects the sophistication of Aksumite trade and its integration into the broader economic world. The inscriptions on these coins, initially written in Greek and later in Ge'ez, illustrate the cosmopolitan nature of Aksum's economic relationships. Aksum was a highly centralized kingdom ruled by a monarch who wielded absolute authority. The king not only controlled trade but also held religious significance, often being depicted on coins and inscriptions with divine imagery. The rulers of Aksum expanded their influence through military conquests, diplomacy, and trade agreements. Aksum was a highly centralized kingdom ruled by a monarch who wielded absolute authority. The king not only controlled trade but also held religious significance, often being depicted on coins and inscriptions with divine imagery. The rulers of Aksum expanded their influence through military conquests, diplomacy, and trade agreements. One of the most famous kings of Aksum was King Azarnar, who reigned early to mid-4th century CE, who is best remembered for converting the kingdom to Christianity. Under Azarnar's rule, Aksum reached its territorial height, extending its influence over parts of present-day Sudan, Eritrea, Djibouti, and Yemen. The social structure of Aksum was hierarchical, with the ruling elite consisting of nobility, priests, and wealthy merchants, while farmers, artisans, and labourers formed the lower classes. Despite this social stratification, Aksumite society allowed for significant mobility through trade and military service. Aksum's architectural achievements are among the most remarkable in Africa. One of the most iconic features of Aksumite civilization is its towering stone stelae, massive obelisks that served as markers for royal tombs. These stelae, some of which are over 30 meters tall, were carved from a single piece of stone and decorated with intricate patterns and symbolic engravings. The largest of these obelisks, known as the Great Stele, is believed to have originally stood at over 33 meters but has since collapsed. The obelisk of Aksum, another notable monument, was taken to Italy during the early 20th century but was returned to Ethiopia in 2005. The stelae serve as a testament to the engineering prowess of the Aksumites. Their construction required advanced quarrying and transport techniques, as well as an organized labor force capable of carving and erecting these massive structures. The stelae were often associated with burial sites and may have symbolized the power and divine authority of the Aksumite rulers. Perhaps the most defining event in Aksumite history was the kingdom's conversion to Christianity under King Azarnar in the 4th century CE. Aksum's adoption of Christianity marked one of the earliest instances of a state embracing the faith, placing it alongside the Roman and Byzantine empires as a major Christian power. Azarnar's conversion was heavily influenced by Frumentius, a Syrian missionary who had been captured and brought to Aksum as a child. He eventually became the Bishop of Aksum and played a crucial role in promoting Christianity throughout the kingdom. Under Azarnar, churches were constructed, and Christian symbols began to appear on Aksumite coins, replacing earlier pagan and polytheistic imagery. Aksum's embrace of Christianity would have lasting effects on Ethiopian culture and identity. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which traces its origins to Aksum, remains one of the oldest Christian traditions in the world, maintaining practices that have been preserved for over a millennium. By the 7th century CE, Aksum's power began to wane due to a combination of internal and external pressures. Several factors contributed to its decline: trade disruptions, the rise of Islam, and the expansion of the Arab Caliphate in the 7th century CE shifted trade routes away from the Red Sea, diminishing Aksum's economic influence. Environmental changes, deforestation, soil depletion, and climate fluctuations may have contributed to reduced agricultural productivity, weakening the kingdom's economic stability. Military conflicts. Aksum faced pressures from neighboring kingdoms, including the expansion of Arab and Persian powers in the Red Sea region, limiting its ability to control trade routes. Despite its decline as a political power, Aksum's cultural and religious influence endured. The Christian legacy established during King Asarnar's reign continued to define Ethiopian identity for centuries, shaping the development of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church and inspiring future Ethiopian empires, such as the Zagwe and Solomonic dynasties. The Kingdom of Aksum stands as one of the greatest African civilizations of antiquity, demonstrating a high level of economic sophistication, political organization, and cultural influence. As a trading powerhouse, Aksum connected Africa with the ancient world, facilitating exchanges of goods, ideas, and religious beliefs. Its early adoption of Christianity helped shape the religious landscape of Ethiopia, making it one of the oldest Christian nations in history. The legacy of Aksum lives on in the architectural marvels of its stele, the enduring influence of the Gez language, and the continued presence of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. While Aksum's dominance may have faded over time, its contributions to world history remain undeniable. Today, the ruins of Aksum are a UNESCO World Heritage Site, attracting visitors and scholars eager to uncover the secrets of this extraordinary civilization. The Inca Empire, known as Tawantinsuyu in the Quechua language, was the largest and most sophisticated civilization in pre-Columbian America. At its height in the 15th and early 16th centuries, the empire stretched across much of West and South America, encompassing present-day Peru, Ecuador, Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, and Colombia. Famed for its monumental architecture, vast road network, and advanced agricultural techniques, the Inca civilization thrived until its dramatic collapse following Spanish conquest in 1533. The Incas were originally a small ethnic group centered around Cusco, a city in the Andean highlands of modern-day Peru. According to legend, the first Inca ruler, Manco Capac, was divinely ordained by the sun god Inti and established Cusco as the capital. Over the centuries, the Incas gradually expanded their territory, but it was under the leadership of Pachacuti Inca Yupanqui, who reigned from 1438 to 1471, that the empire began its rapid expansion. Pachacuti reorganized the kingdom into an imperial state and initiated military campaigns that brought vast regions under Inca control. His successors, particularly his son Tupac Inca Yupanqui and grandson Huayna Capac, continued this expansion, integrating diverse cultures and regions into a single, highly organized polity. One of the most impressive aspects of the Inca Empire was its centralized and efficient administrative system. The emperor, known as the Sarper Inca, was considered a divine ruler, believed to be the living son of the sun god. He wielded absolute power and was supported by an elite ruling class. To manage their vast empire, the Incas divided it into 4 administrative regions, or suyus, which collectively formed Tawantinsuyu, which means of the 4 regions. Each region was governed by a high-ranking official who answered directly to the Sarper Inca. A key feature of Inca governance was the MITA system, a form of labor taxation in which citizens provided work for state projects, such as infrastructure development and military service, rather than paying tribute in goods or money. This system ensured the construction of monumental public works and helped maintain social cohesion. One of the most remarkable achievements of the Incas was their extensive road network, known as the Capac-Nan, which spanned over 40,000 kilometers. This sophisticated system of roads and bridges connected the empire's diverse regions, allowing for efficient communication, trade, and military movement. The roads traversed some of the world's most challenging terrains, including high mountain passes, deep valleys, and coastal deserts. Suspension bridges made from woven plant fibers, such as the Huashuarca Bridge, enabled safe passage over deep ravines. The Incas also constructed tambos, rest houses, along the roads, where messengers, chasquis, would relay information using a system of runners. The effectiveness of the Inca road system was so remarkable that even centuries after the empire's fall, the Spanish continued to use these routes for transportation. Despite the challenging geography of the Andes, the Incas developed advanced agricultural techniques that allowed them to sustain a large population. They engineered terraced fields, or andans, which prevented soil erosion and maximized arable land. These terraces can still be seen today in places like the Sacred Valley and Machu Picchu. The Incas also created a sophisticated irrigation system that distributed water from mountain sources to lower farmlands. Their ability to cultivate a wide variety of crops, including potatoes, maize, quinoa, and coca, allowed them to establish food security across different ecological zones. To store surplus food, the Incas built colkers, storage warehouses, ensuring that provisions were available during times of drought or hardship. This level of planning and organization played a crucial role in sustaining their vast empire. Machu Picchu, one of the most iconic archaeological sites in the world, exemplifies Inca engineering and architectural brilliance. Built during the reign of Pachacuti in the 15th century, this mountaintop citadel served as a royal estate or religious retreat. Nestled at nearly 2,430 meters above sea level, Machu Picchu was designed with remarkable precision. The site's structures were constructed using a technique called ashlar, where stones were cut to fit together without mortar. This method made the buildings highly resistant to earthquakes, a crucial adaptation given the seismic activity in the region. The exact purpose of Machu Picchu remains debated, but its layout suggests that it was an important religious, political, and astronomical center. The site was abandoned during the Spanish conquest and remained unknown to the outside world until its rediscovery by Hiram Bingham in 1911. Inca society was highly organized and structured around the concept of ilu, or extended family communities that worked together to meet agricultural and societal needs. The Incas placed great emphasis on collective labor, reciprocity, and cooperation, principles that reinforced social stability. Inca religion was polytheistic, with a strong emphasis on nature and celestial bodies. The sun god Inti was the most important deity, and the Sarper Inca was regarded as his direct descendant. Other important gods included Viracocha, the creator god, Mumar Quiller, the moon goddess, and Pachamama, the earth goddess. Religious ceremonies often involved offerings of food, textiles, and even human sacrifices, particularly during times of crisis. The Incas also practiced mummification, preserving the remains of rulers and ancestors as sacred relics. The official language of the Inca Empire was Quechua, which is still spoken by millions in the Andes today. However, the Incas did not develop a written script. Instead, they used a system called quipu, a series of knotted cords that recorded numerical and administrative information. These records were maintained by specially trained officials known as quipucamayarcas. The Inca Empire met a swift and devastating end following the arrival of Spanish conquistadors led by Francisco Pizarro in the 1530s. At the time, the Incas were weakened by internal conflict, specifically, a civil war between two rival brothers, Atahualpa and Huáscar, over the imperial throne. In 1532, Pizarro captured Atahualpa at the Battle of Cajamarca, demanding a vast ransom of gold and silver for his release. Despite receiving the ransom, the Spanish executed Atahualpa, plunging the empire into chaos. Over the next several years, the Spanish systematically dismantled Inca rule, aided by superior weaponry, horses, and alliances with discontented indigenous groups. The last stronghold of the Incas, Vilcabamba, fell to the Spanish in 1572, marking the definitive end of the empire. Despite its fall, the legacy of the Inca Empire endures. The Quechua language, Andean agricultural techniques, and aspects of Inca engineering continue to influence modern Andean culture. Many of the Inca roads, terraces, and irrigation systems are still in use today, a testament to their ingenuity. The spiritual and cultural traditions of the Incas also persist, with indigenous communities in Peru, Bolivia, and Ecuador maintaining ancestral practices rooted in Inca heritage. Sites like Machu Picchu attract millions of visitors each year, preserving the memory of this extraordinary civilization. The Inca Empire was a civilization of remarkable achievements, excelling in architecture, engineering, agriculture, and governance. Its rapid rise and sudden fall highlight both the resilience and vulnerability of powerful empires. Today, the echoes of Tawantinsuyu can still be felt throughout the Andes, a reminder of the Inca people's enduring influence on South American history and culture. Nestled between the towering mountains and sweeping deserts of the Iranian plateau, the Achaemenid Empire emerged as one of the most expansive and influential civilizations of the ancient world. Spanning from the Indus Valley to the Mediterranean, this empire thrived under a succession of visionary rulers, leaving behind a legacy of governance, culture, and monumental architecture. The origins of the Achaemenid Empire can be traced to the mid-6th century BCE, when a remarkable leader, Cyrus II, later known as Cyrus the Great, rose to power. Around 550 BCE, he united the disparate Persian and Median tribes under a single rule, forging a kingdom that would soon expand beyond the boundaries of any previous empire. Cyrus was not only a formidable military strategist, but also an enlightened ruler. His most famous conquest, the capture of Babylon in 539 BCE, was conducted with diplomacy and restraint. Instead of destruction, he allowed religious and cultural traditions to flourish, famously issuing the Cyrus Cylinder, a declaration of human rights that permitted the exiled Jewish population to return to Jerusalem. His policies of tolerance and respect earned him admiration even from those he had conquered, setting a precedent for future Persian rulers. Following Cyrus's legacy, his successors continued to expand and consolidate the empire. Darius I, also known as Darius the Great, reigned 522 to 486 BCE, implemented sweeping administrative reforms that enabled Persia to govern its vast territories effectively. He divided the empire into provinces known as satrapies, each overseen by a governor, or satrap, who managed local affairs under the emperor's watchful eye. To facilitate communication and control, Darius ordered the construction of the Royal Road, an extensive network stretching over 2,500 kilometers, 1,500 miles, from Sardis to Susa. This road enabled efficient trade, military movements, and the rapid relay of messages using a postal system where couriers traveled on horseback from station to station. Under Darius, Persia also adopted a standardized currency, the daric, a gold coin that promoted economic stability across the empire. This economic cohesion, combined with an emphasis on infrastructure, allowed the Persian Empire to flourish. One of the most striking legacies of the Achaemenid rulers is the monumental city of Persepolis, founded by Darius the Great as the ceremonial capital of the empire. Nestled in the heart of Persia, this grand complex symbolized the empire's wealth, artistic sophistication, and political might. The architecture of Persepolis was breathtaking, featuring immense columns, intricate stone carvings, and gateways adorned with mythical creatures. The Upper Danur, audience hall, stood as a testament to the empire's grandeur, where delegations from across the known world would present tributes to the Persian king. Every spring, the festival of Nowruz, Persian New Year, brought dignitaries, nobles, and artisans from across the empire to Persepolis, reinforcing the unity and diversity of the Achaemenid world. Although Persepolis met a tragic end when Alexander the Great set it ablaze in 330 BCE, its ruins remain an enduring symbol of Persian architectural brilliance. Unlike many empires that ruled through oppression, the Achaemenids adopted policies of cultural inclusion and religious tolerance. Persian rulers respected the traditions and governance structures of their conquered territories, allowing local customs to persist. This is evident in their treatment of Egypt, where Persian kings adopted pharaonic titles and upheld religious traditions. In the vast expanse of Mesopotamia, they preserved the temples of Babylon and maintained administrative systems that had been in place for centuries. Zoroastrianism, the dominant religion of the Persian elite, played a significant role in shaping the empire's moral and ethical foundations. Founded by the prophet Zarathustra, this faith emphasized the struggle between good, Ahura Mazda, and evil, Angra Mainyu, advocating truth, justice, and righteousness. The principles of Zoroastrianism influenced Persian governance and later religious traditions, including Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The Persian military, though vast and formidable, relied not solely on brute force but on strategy and logistics. The Immortals, an elite force of 10,000 highly trained soldiers, formed the backbone of the Persian army. These warriors, clad in ornate armor, maintained their numbers meticulously. Any fallen soldier was immediately replaced, ensuring the unit remained at full strength. Naval power also played a crucial role in Persian expansion. The empire's vast coastline allowed it to develop a formidable navy, which clashed with the Greek city-states in a series of conflicts known as the Greco-Persian Wars, 499 to 449 BCE. Although the Persians suffered defeats at battles like Marathon and Salamis, their resilience and adaptability allowed them to maintain control over much of their empire. Despite its strength, internal struggles and external pressures eventually weakened the Achaemenid Empire. The reign of Darius III, who reigned from 336 to 330 BCE, was marked by instability and challenges to centralized authority. In 334 BCE, Alexander the Great, the young Macedonian king, launched his campaign against Persia. His swift victories at Granicus, Issus, and Gaugamela dismantled Persian resistance, and by 330 BCE, he had marched into Persepolis, signaling the end of the Achaemenid era. Despite its fall, Persian traditions and administrative systems continued to shape the region for centuries. The Seleucid, Parthian, and Sasanian empires that followed preserved many aspects of Achaemenid governance, culture, and architecture. Though the Achaemenid Empire ceased to exist as a political entity, its impact resonates throughout history. From its pioneering administrative systems to its architectural wonders, Persian influence endured in subsequent civilizations. The concept of imperial governance, where diverse peoples are united under a tolerant and centralized administration, inspired later empires, including the Romans, Byzantines, and Ottomans. The Persian postal system, road networks, and economic structures set a precedent for future civilizations. Moreover, the Persian language and culture continue to thrive, shaping the literature, philosophy, and art of later Iranian dynasties. The teachings of Zoroastrianism left a profound mark on global religious thought, emphasizing the eternal battle between good and evil. As we conclude our journey through the grandeur of ancient Persia, allow the echoes of history to lull you into rest. Imagine the bustling courtyards of Persepolis, the rhythmic footsteps of couriers along the royal road, and the quiet wisdom of Cyrus the Great as he shaped an empire built on unity and respect. Let the past envelop you in its quiet embrace, offering a sanctuary of contemplation and serenity. The Viking Age, spanning roughly from 800 to 1100 CE, marks a pivotal period in European and global history. Originating from the Scandinavian lands of modern-day Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, the Vikings were a complex society of farmers, traders, explorers, and warriors. Though often portrayed as fearsome raiders, the Vikings were also skilled navigators who established trade networks, founded settlements across Europe and beyond, and even reached North America nearly 500 years before Columbus. Their influence extended from the British Isles and the Frankish kingdoms to the far reaches of Russia, the Middle East, and the shores of North America. This period saw the expansion of Norse culture, seafaring expertise, and economic transformation, leaving a lasting legacy that continues to shape modern societies. This narrative will explore the multifaceted aspects of Viking civilization, including their social structure, military prowess, exploration, religious transformation, and eventual decline. The Vikings originated from Scandinavia, a region characterized by rugged landscapes, dense forests, and harsh winters. This environment necessitated resilience, resourcefulness, and adaptability, traits that became hallmarks of Viking culture. Society in Viking Scandinavia was structured around a hierarchical system composed of three main classes. The Jarls were the elite class, including chieftains and rulers, who controlled vast lands, led warriors, and played key roles in governance. The Carls were the majority of Viking society, consisting of farmers, traders, and craftsmen. They owned land, bore arms, and participated in communal decision-making. The thralls were the lowest class, primarily captives taken during raids or born into servitude. Slaves could be freed through service or purchase. Despite their reputation as raiders, most Vikings were farmers and traders. Their society was governed by local assemblies called things, where free men could voice opinions and settle disputes. The Vikings also had a rich oral tradition, with sagas and poetry preserving their history, myths, and heroic exploits. The Vikings' success as explorers and warriors was largely due to their exceptional shipbuilding skills. Their longships were technological marvels, long, narrow, and shallow-drafted vessels capable of both open-sea voyages and river navigation. These ships allowed the Vikings to conduct swift raids, trade expeditions, and explorations far from their homeland. The longships were not only fast but also highly maneuverable, enabling Viking warriors to launch surprise attacks along coastal settlements and river networks. In addition to longships, the Vikings constructed naws, broader merchant ships designed for cargo transport, which played a crucial role in expanding Norse trade routes. The mastery of the seas allowed Vikings to travel vast distances, reaching places that no other European civilization of the time had dared to explore. The Viking Age began with a violent raid on the Lindisfarne monastery in 793 CE, shocking the Christian world. From that moment onward, Viking raids became a defining aspect of the era. Vikings targeted monasteries and settlements across the British Isles, France, and beyond. The wealth of monasteries, often left unguarded, made them prime targets. However, as their power grew, Vikings shifted from simple raiding to full-scale conquest and settlement. Some key military ventures of the Vikings included the invasion of England in 865 CE, when the Great Heathen Army, a coalition of Viking warriors, launched a massive campaign to conquer Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. While some Viking rulers, like Ivar the Boneless, succeeded in capturing territories, others faced resistance, leading to long-term conflicts. The Siege of Paris in 885 CE saw Viking fleets sailing up the Seine River and laying siege to Paris, demanding ransom from the French king. The Vikings' ability to navigate deep into Europe's interior shocked medieval rulers. Viking rule extended to Ireland and Scotland, where Norse settlers established kingdoms in Dublin, the Orkney Islands, and the Hebrides, influencing local culture and trade. While Vikings were fierce warriors, their military success relied not only on brute strength but also on strategic planning, adaptability, and technological superiority. Beyond warfare, the Vikings were prolific traders who established vast commercial networks. Their trade routes stretched from the Baltic Sea to the Mediterranean, reaching the Byzantine Empire and the Islamic caliphates. They exchanged furs, amber, walrus ivory, and slaves for luxury goods such as silk, silver, and spices. One of the most remarkable aspects of Viking exploration was their journey westward. Norse sagas and archaeological evidence confirm that Vikings reached North America centuries before Columbus. Key Viking explorations included Greenland around 985 CE, where Eric the Red founded Norse settlements after being exiled from Iceland. These settlements thrived for several centuries, despite the harsh climate. Vinland, explored around 1000 CE, saw Leif Erikson, son of Eric the Red, leading an expedition to North America, establishing a temporary settlement in what is now Newfoundland, Canada. The site, known as Elance Auxiliary Meadows, provides archaeological evidence of Viking presence in the New World. Although Norse settlements in North America were short-lived, their voyages demonstrate the Vikings' unparalleled maritime expertise. Viking religious beliefs were rooted in Norse mythology, featuring gods such as Odin, Thor, and Freyr. Their religion emphasized bravery, honor, and the afterlife, particularly Valhalla, a warrior's paradise where the bravest fighters would feast eternally. However, as the Viking Age progressed, contact with Christian Europe led to religious changes. Many Vikings converted to Christianity, particularly after settling in England, France, and Ireland. By the late 10th and early 11th centuries, Christian rulers, such as King Olaf Tryggvason of Norway and King Harald Bluetooth of Denmark, played key roles in promoting Christianity. By the end of the Viking Age, Christianity had largely replaced Norse paganism, and Viking society integrated into the broader Christian world. Several factors contributed to the decline of Viking dominance by the 11th century. Kingdoms such as England and France developed better fortifications and organized militaries, making Viking raids less effective. The descendants of Viking settlers, particularly in Normandy, began to assimilate and establish powerful states of their own, such as William the Conqueror's invasion of England in 1066. As Scandinavian kingdoms centralized, Viking expeditions gradually shifted from raiding to territorial rule. A decline in trade and shifts in climate may have impacted Viking agricultural sustainability, leading to economic hardships. By the 12th century, the Viking Age had officially ended, but its legacy endured in European history, language, and culture. The Vikings left an indelible mark on world history. Their impact can be seen in place names, as many English, Scottish, and Irish towns retain Norse origins, such as York for Majorvik. Old Norse contributed words like a sky, a knife, ear and a window to English. Viking mythology inspired literature, films, and modern Norse identity. Viking expansion helped shape medieval trade routes and European geopolitics. The Vikings were not just warriors but also explorers, traders, and pioneers of the medieval world. Their ability to adapt, innovate, and influence societies beyond Scandinavia solidifies their place as one of history's most remarkable civilizations. Deep in the rolling plains of southern England, an ancient monument stands as one of the most enigmatic and awe-inspiring structures of the prehistoric world. Stonehenge, a vast circle of towering stones aligned with celestial bodies, has fascinated scholars, archaeologists, and visitors for centuries. Built in multiple phases over a period of nearly 1,000 years, this Neolithic and Bronze Age structure reflects the ingenuity and spiritual devotion of the people who constructed it. Though the true purpose of Stonehenge remains a mystery, it is widely believed to have been a site of astronomical observation, religious worship, and communal gathering. The civilization that built and used Stonehenge belonged to Britain's broader megalithic culture, a society that erected large stone monuments across the British Isles and Western Europe. Their technological prowess, social organization, and connection to the natural world are evident in the enduring legacy of their structures. This exploration of the Stonehenge builders delves into their society, construction methods, beliefs, and the significance of their megalithic architecture. The people who built Stonehenge belonged to a Neolithic society that transitioned from a hunter-gatherer existence to a more settled agricultural lifestyle. Around 4000 BCE, farming communities began to emerge across Britain, cultivating wheat and barley while domesticating animals such as sheep, cattle, and pigs. These early Britons lived in small villages, constructing timber longhouses and circular dwellings. The Stonehenge builders were part of a broader megalithic tradition that extended across Western Europe. Similar stone circles, burial mounds, and ceremonial structures have been found in Ireland, Scotland, Brittany, and even as far as the Iberian Peninsula. This suggests that a shared cultural or religious practice inspired these ancient communities to construct large stone monuments. Stonehenge was not built in isolation, but rather within a landscape rich in ceremonial sites. Nearby monuments such as Averbury, Durrington Walls, and Woodhenge indicate that this area was a focal point for religious or social activity. The builders likely participated in rituals, feasts, and seasonal celebrations that bound their community together. The construction of Stonehenge took place over several phases, beginning around 3000 BCE and continuing until roughly 2000 BCE. The complexity of its design and the sheer scale of labor required suggest a well-organized society capable of mobilizing large workforces. The first phase of Stonehenge involved digging a circular ditch with an embankment, forming what is known as a henge. This was an enormous undertaking, as the builders used antler picks and wooden tools to excavate the chalky soil. Within the ditch, they placed a series of pits, known as the Aubrey holes, which may have held wooden posts or stones. One of the most remarkable aspects of Stonehenge is the use of bluestones, massive rocks that originated in the Preseli Hills of Wales, nearly 150 miles away. How these stones were transported remains a subject of debate, but theories suggest they were either hauled on sledges and rollers or floated along rivers on rafts. The decision to bring stones from such a distant location indicates that these rocks held special significance. They may have been believed to possess spiritual or healing properties, making Stonehenge a sacred site. The final and most famous phase of construction involved the placement of enormous sarsen stones, which form the iconic outer circle and inner horseshoe of Stonehenge. These stones, some weighing up to 50 tons, were quarried from Marlborough Downs, about 20 miles to the north. The builders arranged these stones with remarkable precision. The trilithons, pairs of vertical sarsens topped with a horizontal lintel, were carefully fitted together using a mortise and tenon technique, showcasing their advanced engineering skills. The alignment of Stonehenge with the summer and winter solstices suggests that the builders had a sophisticated understanding of astronomy. Although the true purpose of Stonehenge remains uncertain, several theories offer insights into its significance. One of the most widely accepted theories is that Stonehenge functioned as an astronomical observatory. The monument's alignment with the summer and winter solstices suggests that it was used to mark seasonal changes. On the summer solstice, the rising sun aligns perfectly with the heel stone, an outlying monolith. This alignment may have helped early farmers track the solar calendar, allowing them to determine the best times for planting and harvesting crops. Stonehenge may have been a place of religious worship, where rituals and ceremonies were performed. Many Neolithic cultures venerated natural forces such as the sun, moon, and stars, and Stonehenge's design suggests a deep connection to these celestial bodies. Offerings, human remains, and evidence of large gatherings indicate that the site was used for feasts, funerary rites, and spiritual observances. Excavations around Stonehenge have uncovered numerous human burials, leading some archaeologists to propose that it was a sacred necropolis. The presence of cremated remains suggests that Stonehenge may have been a site where ancestors were honored, with the stones serving as a gateway between the living and the dead. Some researchers believe that Stonehenge was a place of healing. The choice of blue stones, which may have been thought to possess mystical properties, supports the idea that people traveled to Stonehenge seeking cures for ailments. This theory is reinforced by the discovery of skeletal remains showing evidence of illness and injury. The civilization that built Stonehenge eventually gave way to new waves of migration and cultural change. By the time the Bronze Age arrived around 2000 BCE, metal tools and weapons had begun to replace stone implements, and new social hierarchies emerged. The arrival of the Beaker people, a group known for their distinctive pottery and burial practices, marked the transition from Neolithic to Bronze Age Britain. Although the builders of Stonehenge left no written records, their legacy endures in the monument itself. Today, Stonehenge continues to inspire awe and curiosity, drawing millions of visitors each year. The Stonehenge builders were part of a sophisticated and highly organized society that possessed advanced engineering skills, deep spiritual beliefs, and a profound connection to the natural world. Their ability to transport massive stones across great distances and align them with celestial events demonstrates remarkable ingenuity. Though the exact purpose of Stonehenge remains a mystery, its significance as a place of ceremony, observation, and community gathering is undeniable. Whether it was a sacred temple, a burial ground, or an ancient calendar, Stonehenge stands as a testament to the enduring ambition and vision of its creators. Ancient Greece is widely regarded as one of the most influential civilizations in human history. Emerging around 800 BCE and lasting until its conquest by Rome in 146 BCE, Greece produced groundbreaking advancements in philosophy, politics, art, and science. It was a land of city-states, fierce warriors, legendary myths, and profound intellectual achievements that continue to shape modern society. From the birth of democracy in Athens to the philosophical insights of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, and from the military might of Sparta to the architectural grandeur of the Parthenon, ancient Greece left a lasting legacy that still resonates today. Unlike many ancient civilizations that centralized power under a single ruler, Greece was composed of independent city-states, or polis. Each polis had its own government, military, and laws, though they shared language, religion, and cultural traditions. Among the most significant city-states were Athens and Sparta, which represented two contrasting models of governance and society. Athens is often celebrated as the birthplace of democracy. In the 5th century BCE, under leaders like Solon, Cleisthenes, and Pericles, Athens developed a system of government in which citizens could participate directly in decision-making. This early form of democracy allowed male citizens to vote on laws and policies, shaping the future of governance in the Western world. Athens also became a hub of culture and intellect, producing legendary thinkers, artists, and writers. In contrast to Athens, Sparta was a highly militarized society where discipline and warfare were the highest virtues. Governed by a rigid system of oligarchy, Sparta was ruled by 2 kings and a council of elders. Spartan boys were trained from a young age in the agoge, an intense military education system that emphasized endurance, obedience, and combat skills. Despite their stark differences, Athens and Sparta united during times of crisis. One of ancient Greece's greatest contributions to humanity was its philosophy. Greek thinkers sought to understand the world through reason, logic, and observation rather than relying solely on mythology. Socrates, known for the Socratic method, encouraged critical thinking by engaging in dialogues that questioned beliefs and assumptions. He was condemned to death for allegedly corrupting the youth of Athens, but left a profound impact on Western thought. Plato, a student of Socrates, founded the Academy, one of the first institutions of higher learning. His work, The Republic, explores justice, governance, and the idea of philosopher kings. Aristotle, a student of Plato and tutor to Alexander the Great, made significant contributions to logic, ethics, biology, and politics. His ideas influenced European thought for centuries. Greek philosophy laid the groundwork for fields such as political theory, ethics, and scientific reasoning. Ancient Greece also excelled in the arts, producing literature, sculpture, and architecture that continue to inspire today. Homer's epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey, are foundational works of Western literature, telling the stories of the Trojan War and the adventures of Odysseus. Greek playwrights such as Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides wrote dramas exploring themes of fate, power, and morality. Aristophanes, on the other hand, pioneered comedic plays that satirized Athenian society. Greek architecture emphasized balance, proportion, and harmony. Some of the most famous structures include the Parthenon, a temple dedicated to Athena located on the Acropolis of Athens, exemplifying the Doric order and classical Greek aesthetics. The Theatre of Epidaurus is known for its perfect acoustics, showcasing the importance of drama in Greek culture. The temples of Olympia and Delphi were religious sites dedicated to Zeus and Apollo, reflecting Greek devotion to their gods. Greek sculptors, such as Phidias and Praxiteles, created lifelike statues that celebrated human beauty and movement, influencing Renaissance artists centuries later. Ancient Greece was often engaged in warfare, both with external enemies and among its own city-states. Greece's defining moment of unity came during the Persian Wars when Athens and Sparta joined forces to repel the massive Persian Empire. Key battles included the Battle of Marathon, where the Athenians defeated the Persians, inspiring the modern marathon race. The Battle of Thermopylae saw King Leonidas and 300 Spartans heroically resist the Persian army. The Battle of Salamis resulted in a decisive victory for the Athenian navy, ensuring Greek independence. After defeating Persia, tensions between Athens and Sparta escalated into a brutal conflict. Sparta, with its superior land forces, ultimately defeated Athens, leading to a period of decline for the city-state. The war weakened Greece, making it vulnerable to later invasions. In the 4th century BCE, Alexander the Great of Macedonia conquered Greece and launched one of history's most ambitious military campaigns. By the time of his death, he had created an empire stretching from Greece to Egypt, Persia, and India. His conquests spread Greek culture across the known world, blending it with Eastern traditions in what became known as the Hellenistic era. This period saw advancements in mathematics by Euclid and Archimedes, significant contributions to medicine by Hippocrates, and groundbreaking astronomical theories by Aristarchus, who proposed that the Earth orbits the Sun centuries before Copernicus. Even after Greece fell to Rome, its culture remained deeply embedded in Western civilization. Ancient Greece's contributions to philosophy, politics, literature, art, and science continued to shape the modern world. The Greek model of citizen participation inspired modern political systems. The works of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle are foundational to Western thought. Neoclassical buildings in Washington, D. and London reflect Greek design principles. The Olympic Games, revived in 1896, originated in ancient Greece as a tribute to Zeus. From its monumental temples to its revolutionary ideas, ancient Greece remains one of the most remarkable civilizations in history. As we conclude this section of our journey, let the echoes of ancient philosophers, the quiet hum of the Athenian marketplace, and the rhythmic chants of Spartan warriors carry you into a restful state. The wisdom of Greece endures, guiding us through the corridors of time with its enduring legacy. The story of Rome begins with legend. According to tradition, Rome was founded in 753 BCE by Romulus, the first of its legendary kings. The city grew from a small settlement along the banks of the Tiber River into a powerful republic that would eventually control much of the known world. Rome's early development was influenced by the neighboring Etruscans, who introduced urban planning, religious practices, and engineering techniques that would shape the city's infrastructure and culture. By the late 6th century BCE, Rome transitioned from a monarchy to a republic. This shift marked the beginning of a political system that emphasized shared governance, legal structures, and civic duty. The Roman Republic established a complex system of checks and balances that would later inspire modern democratic institutions. The Roman Republic was characterized by a unique blend of democracy, oligarchy, and republicanism. Power was divided among elected officials, the Senate, and popular assemblies. The most powerful officials were the consuls, two individuals elected annually to oversee military campaigns and governance. The Senate, composed of aristocratic families, wielded significant influence over policy, finance, and foreign affairs. Despite its republican ideals, Roman society remained deeply hierarchical. The patricians, or aristocratic families, held most of the political power, while the plebeians, or common citizens, gradually gained rights through social struggles known as the conflict of the orders. These struggles led to the creation of the 12 Tables, the first written code of Roman law, which became the foundation of Roman legal principles. Rome's political system was highly adaptable, allowing it to govern diverse populations across its expanding territories. The concept of citizenship was extended to conquered peoples, integrating them into the Roman system and fostering loyalty to the state. Rome's military prowess was a key factor in its expansion. The legions, highly disciplined and strategically organized, enabled Rome to conquer vast territories. The Punic Wars against Carthage, fought between 264 and 146 BCE, marked a turning point in Rome's dominance. The destruction of Carthage and the conquest of its territories in North Africa, Spain, and the Mediterranean solidified Rome's position as a superpower. As Rome expanded, internal conflicts arose. The Republic struggled with economic inequality, political corruption, and military upheaval. Generals such as Julius Caesar capitalized on these weaknesses, amassing personal power and challenging the authority of the Senate. In 44 BCE, Caesar declared himself dictator for life, an act that led to his assassination by senators who feared the end of the Republic. The chaos that followed resulted in the rise of Caesar's adopted heir, Octavian, who later became Augustus, Rome's first emperor. This marked the transition from the Roman Republic to the Roman Empire. Under Augustus and his successors, Rome entered a period of relative peace and prosperity known as the Pax Romana. Lasting from 27 BCE to 180 CE, this era saw the expansion of infrastructure, economic stability, and cultural flourishing. Roman engineering achievements were unparalleled. Roads, such as the famous Appian Way, connected distant provinces, facilitating trade, military movement, and communication. Aqueducts supplied cities with fresh water, showcasing Rome's mastery of hydraulics. Architectural marvels, including the Colosseum and the Pantheon, demonstrated the empire's advancements in concrete construction and urban planning. The empire's administrative system allowed it to govern diverse cultures efficiently. Provinces were overseen by governors, while Roman law provided a unified legal framework that protected property rights, contracts, and citizenship. The legal principles developed by Rome, such as the presumption of innocence. Rome was not only a military and political powerhouse, but also a cultural and intellectual hub. Literature, philosophy, and art flourished under imperial patronage. Writers such as Virgil, Ovid, and Horace composed epic poetry and historical narratives that celebrated Rome's grandeur. Philosophers like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius explored Stoic principles, emphasizing discipline, virtue, and rationality. Roman art blended Greek influences with uniquely Roman themes. Sculptures, frescoes, and mosaics adorned public spaces and private villas, depicting historical events, mythology, and daily life. The city of Pompeii, preserved by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, offers a remarkable glimpse into Roman artistic and architectural achievements. Latin, the language of Rome, became the foundation of the Romance languages, including Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Romanian. Roman numerals and engineering techniques influenced medieval and Renaissance developments, ensuring that Rome's legacy endured for centuries. Despite its achievements, the Roman Empire faced numerous challenges that led to its decline. Economic instability, overexpansion, and political corruption weakened the empire's foundations. Invasions by Germanic tribes, internal power struggles, and reliance on mercenary armies further destabilized Rome. In 285 CE, Emperor Diocletian attempted to restore order by dividing the empire into eastern and western halves, recognizing the difficulty of managing such a vast territory. The Western Roman Empire continued to decline, culminating in the sack of Rome by the Visigoths in 410 CE. In 476 CE, the last Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed, marking the fall of the Western Roman Empire. The Eastern Roman Empire, later known as the Byzantine Empire, survived for another 1,000 years, preserving Roman traditions, governance, and culture until the fall of Constantinople in 1453 CE. Though the Roman Empire fell, its impact on the world remains profound. Roman law, engineering, and governance shaped European history and influenced modern institutions. The concept of a republic inspired political thinkers during the Enlightenment, leading to the development of democratic systems in the United States and Europe. Architectural techniques pioneered by the Romans continue to be used in modern construction. The principles of urban planning, road networks, and aqueducts serve as models for contemporary infrastructure. The Latin language, preserved through the Catholic Church and academia, continues to be studied and used in scientific and legal terminology. Even in daily life, remnants of Rome are present. The Gregorian calendar, used worldwide, evolved from the Julian calendar introduced by Julius Caesar. The tradition of the Senate persists in modern legislative bodies. Roman philosophy, literature, and art continue to be studied and admired. As we conclude this chapter of our journey, allow the echoes of Rome's grand forums, the steady rhythm of chariot wheels on stone-paved roads, and the distant hum of philosophers discussing virtue and fate to guide you into a restful state. The story of Rome is one of ambition, resilience, and transformation, a civilization whose legacy endures beyond the ruins of its fallen empire.